Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers so much for a fun-filled yet affordable family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with ramp and dock, free rowboats and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool and kiddie pool. You'll enjoy our attractive waterfront and beachside accommodations. So visit us online at gogreenharbor.com.
Executive session under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, impact bargaining firefighters, and as chair, I declare not to go into executive session. Could hurt our future bargaining position, and upon our business in executive session, we'll return to open session. So move.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Patterson, aye.
Flynn, aye. Moran, aye.
Jones, aye. We'll be in executive session. Call our meeting to order. The Board of Selectmen has just returned from executive session. We're now in open session. And I welcome you all to our Monday, April 11th, 2016 meeting, and invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item of business, we have a proclamation. Mr. Patterson, please.
Yes.
We did actually, I think Mr. Donahue is here. Benjamin, if you'd come to the podium, we have some words we'd like to have you here say.
Well, this is a proclamation for Ben Donahue having reached the rank of Eagle Scout in Troop 40. And it's a particular honor for me because I've known the Donahue family for at least 10 years. And have done many, many mountain hikes and campouts with Ben. And prior to Ben coming along, his brother Chris also earned an Eagle Scout rank as well. So I have a lot of history with Chris as well. And I can tell you that Jim Donahue, their father, has been on many outings with me as well. So I know this young man very well and can attest to the fact that he is a man of true, strong character. Maybe it would be a good time for me to mention that his Eagle project, every Eagle Scout has to do a major project that's a contribution to the community. And his project in particular had to do with two sets of signs for the Wacoit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Wacoit, Falmouth, of course. The first set of signs was a series of conservation-related topics that would be used for an outdoor education environment. And the second set of signs was basically to give you pointers to the other estuarine research reserves around the country and let you know how far away they are. But the whole idea was to allow Webner, that's their acronym, to reach their goal of keeping the community educated on why we need to take care of our environment. So anyway, Ben, thanks for all the good times you've given me and for your contribution to this community. And so let me then read the proclamation that we will give to you, if you don't mind, at your Court of Honor, and I expect to be there and participate in it. So I move this proclamation, whereas Benjamin A. Donahue of Boy Scout Troop 40 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And whereas Benjamin A. Donahue met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and of Falmouth. And the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank and Benjamin A. Donahue is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privileges. Now therefore, we, Doug Jones, Susan Moran, Mary Pat Flynn, Rebecca Moffett, and Samuel Patterson, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim that Saturday, April 23rd, 2016, will be Benjamin A. Donahue Day. And it's in witness thereof, and we've all signed our names to it, so.
Is there a motion?
I move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Congratulations.
And I just have to mention, these parents have 2 Eagle Scouts. I mean, really an impressive job. Very, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks,
and
Ben.
I'd like to say one thing is that for those of you who are interested, my Eagle Scout Court of Honor is April 23rd at 1:00 p.m. at the St. Barnabas Church.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, under announcements, first thing I want to announce is that we've had a little bit of a revision on our agenda, and this is an issue that we've been dealing with for quite a while. In our first order of business at 7:45 will be approval of a ballot question, and this is in dealing with the merger of the Historic Commission and the Historic Districts Commission. But that's going to be our ballot in just over 35 days, so we need to approve that ballot question tonight. But that has been an adjustment in our agenda. Any other announcements from the board? Time for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on something that's not our agenda, you may do so. Please introduce yourself and please keep your comment to under 2 minutes.
To the Honorable Board of Selectmen. Just a little bit of ancient history. Several years ago, it was either 2 or 3 years ago, I approached your body during the comment period for the disgusting condition of the water meters in the town of Falmouth and the cupola on the Academy building, which is on the historical register. To my knowledge, nothing has been done. I think we're in our 3rd year. And, we go to town meeting, we appropriate sums. I think all of us are proud of the town of Falmouth. But I happen to be one of those guys that just takes a tour all around, and I think it's a serious, serious neglect in the aesthetics of this town of Falmouth. And I ask the board, do something, do something, or paint them all the same color, or sandblast them, do something. But the cupola on the Academy building, that's been held up for long enough. When Mr. Vidal built that, and we put it up there, it was a brand-new structure, has not been touched since, and it's probably about 15 years ago. It's never been touched.
Just, not this is a debate, but you said water meters?
Hydrants.
Fire hydrants, okay.
Fire hydrants. Someday I'll take you on a tour. Anybody that wants to come for a ride with me, I can show you some of the worst-looking fire
Okay, I
hydrants
just
I've
wanna make
ever
sure we-
seen anywhere on the Cape.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I'd like to speak about town meeting. It appeared to go smoothly, but in fact, that was not the case. The issue was the petitioner's article. One was lost. 2 were initially refused by the ID department as they made up rules out of whole cloth. I've been aware for some time that the integrity of my articles has been compromised, and I've been taking steps to protect them and myself. Now the moderator's aware, and he's going to take steps to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future. And this is just a continuing, as it was described the other night on a different issue, as a turf war. And hopefully with the new steps they take, no one will have to worry about this again. Thank you.
Mr. Swag?
Good evening, thank you. Once again, I've had one of my sort of monthly appearances talking about the programs of the Cape Light Compact and the Housing Assistance Corporation, Cape Cod, concerning energy efficiency in your homes. And these are programs that are available for residences, for businesses, for rental properties, with regard to having audits done and then having specific work done on the house with regard to installation, replacing light bulbs for more efficient light bulbs and these types of things. And these are programs offered by the Cape Light Compact, and the number to call is 800-797-6699, and they're available to take requests for audits. And the Housing Assistance Corporation, which deals mainly with low-income housing, has another program that has better incentives even than the Cape Light Compact for those types of situations. And the number to call there is 508-771-5400. So I'd encourage everyone to get involved. Energy efficiency is really important it's good for the household economy, business economy. The town takes advantage of these programs as well, and I'd just like to encourage everyone to do it. It may seem like now the days are still getting longer. It seems like we got plenty of light, but things will change. And the insulation programs actually help in the summer too with cooling. So you've got a lot of different things, and air conditioning systems and different things can be changed out for better efficiency. So thank you. So give a call.
Thank you.
Our operators are waiting, as I say every time. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Our next item on our agenda is the minutes from March 21st and March 28th. Our recording secretary is not here tonight, so I'd like to hold those until she hears. It just makes it a little bit easier for her to get our corrections at that time. Next, under summary of actions, we have licenses. First is a special wine and malt one-day liquor license. This is for the Barnstable County Agricultural Society, Monday, July 18th to Sunday, July 24th. This is for 7 days. You see the map as to where they're going. Is there anyone here from this organization? Any questions from the board?
Just a quick question. I noticed that there was a really organized sort of picture of, where everything's going to be set up. Is this a little different from last year?
This photo is actually during non-fair time.
Yep.
But when we met with the police, this was the area that we thought was the safest. It's right below our security building, and the police are right there, and the fire department right down below.
Can you just give us your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy Brown, I'm the general manager of the society.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
A question?
Yep. Patterson?
Yeah, I noticed we don't have any conditions spelled out for this particular event. And I know that if there's a tent involved in this, there's a building inspection. When it's on the fairground like this, does the building department still have that responsibility to inspect it? So,
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, they'll come out before the fair because this is a tent we're renting, and they inspect all tents on the fairgrounds before we open.
Okay,
And it's a separate permit, too.
Right. I filed the tent permit usually at the beginning of July because tents are always changing.
thank you. I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second for the discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
And the next are the request for a special agricultural liquor license for the Westport Rivers Vineyard and Winery. And this is at the Falmouth Farmers Market, Marina Park, on Thursdays from May 26th all the way to November 22nd, but not every Thursday in the fall.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Under administrative orders, we have 2 grants. Both of these have already gone to the Finance Committee for their approval, and they have approved them. The first is a $5,000 grant for fiscal year 2016 for the Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Enforcement and Equipment Grant funding. And the next is a $10,695 grant for the 2015 Edward Byrne Grant Funds.
I move approval for both grants.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next item is the approval of the Courier Road sidewalk easements. I think this is the fourth meeting in a row we've had this on our agenda for each little piece of it. We did go through the vote at town meeting, and now we're moving on to the next phase of approving the sidewalk.
To my knowledge, all of the groundwork and planning have been completed.
Yep.
And so we have the authority we need to move forward on this. So is this just a matter of authorizing the town manager to move forward with building out these sidewalks?
And there's a document, Selectman Patterson, that each member of the board needs to initial.
Sure.
Correct. Everything else is in order and moving forward.
Then I authorize the town manager to move forward with this project.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Next are some special events. These are the recurring recommended events. I will read them, their dates. If you'd like to hold them, please let me know. If there's someone in the public who thinks we'd like to have a little more discussion, you may also do so. First is the town-wide litter cleanup. This would be starting Saturday, April 23rd to Sunday, May 1st. The Daffodil Days at Spore Gardens, including the closing of Fells Road on Saturday, April 23rd and Saturday, April 30th. The Cinco de Mayo celebration, sponsored by Anejo at Academy Lane on Thursday, May 5th. Run for Your Life at Seacrest Beach Resort on Saturday, May 7th. The Woods Hole May Festival at the Taft Playground on Saturday, May 28th. The Pedal to Parcels, Conservation Parcels in Falmouth by Bike on Sunday, June 5th, 2016. The Falmouth Classic Car Club Car Show. This is 2 dates in Marina Park and Van Shell. One is Sunday, June 26th. The other is Sunday, August 28th. The John Wesley United Methodist Church Sunday Worship at Surf Drive Beach on Sundays, July 3rd to September 4th, with the exception of not on July 10th and not on August 21st. On July 10th, there's a triathlon. On August 21st, there's a small little running race that I think goes by there traditionally. Falmouth Triathlon at Surf Drive Beach on Sunday, July 10th. Buddy Walk by the Sea, Marina Park and Bench on Sunday, July 31st. The Falmouth Walk, Town Hall Square, Saturday, August 20th. The David Lewis 5K at Gosnold, Saturday, September 3rd. Main Street Mile, Main Surf to Surf Drive Beach on Sunday, September 18th. The MS Walk from Mullenhall School to Surf Drive Beach, Sunday, September 25th. And the Cape Cod Marathon Relay and Half Marathon on Saturday, October 29th and Sunday, October 30th. And if you ran in all of these, we'd be in great shape to be able to do the marathon.
Move approval.
Okay, any further discussion on all those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it.
It certainly does make Falmouth a lively place to have all these events going on, and it not only gives opportunities for our citizens, but for all those guests that come in from out of town to participate.
And the one thing that's not obvious to the board, to the non-board members, is how much work goes in by our special events group to make these recommendations, that they have been reviewed and looked over. I know that the week in September, towards the end of the month, is very, very busy, but it does seem that they're parceled out well enough that you can come to this weekend and enjoy many different things without having too much overlap, and I appreciate that work.
And I hope that Heather will carry that back to the members that participate in it, because there are quite a few meetings and a lot of people that bring their expertise and experience to help us make those decisions.
And
Well, and especially to Diane Davidson, who
yes,
processes a
Absolutely.
very heavy load of paperwork and does it
Indeed.
seamlessly from Thursday to Monday for the board, from Thursday to Friday for the board packet. So it's a great effort.
Yep, Rebecca?
yes, please.
First of all, thank you. It's good to see you all again. Thank you very much for the approval for the service. I very much appreciate that. And I just, for clarifications, because I know we've had some issues around the fees, and I know you've had the new policy, et cetera. And so I just wanted, for my own clarification, my understanding is that it is, you pay the first and the last, and then do I ask for the 75% discount for all of that? I mean, obviously I would love to have all of them, but the one waived. But I also understand that, I know you've done a lot of work on my behalf.
Just quickly, since our recording, Secretary's not here, is relying on the mic, if you would, we all know who you are, but.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Rebecca Mincelli, pastor of the John Wesley United Methodist Church.
Thank you.
As I interpret the policy that we have set in place is that the first and last day are required by all organizations, and we can grant, upon request, a discount of up to 75% on any of the other days.
So you want to
Can I put that request in? Yes.
Okay, but we can't, since it's not on our agenda to discuss the fee waiver on that issue.
Oh, but did, the letter that I sent did ask for,
It was very clear in your letter that that's what was being asked. It was not on our agenda that we were discussing waiving the fee.
okay.
And so we will have to put it on another agenda so that it is part of our open meeting law that we have posted. We're going to talk about it. So if anyone has concerns, they can know that we were planning on talking about it.
Okay, so I'll see you again then, perhaps.
See you
Great,
soon.
so-
Okay, thank you.
Good luck.
Mr. Dufresne.
Mr. Chairman, just a question on the Classic Car Show. Years ago, they had it on the library lawn. That has been moved, hopefully permanently. Where's it going to be held?
To Marina Park.
Thank you.
And from our letter that we received from them, they seem very happy to have it there.
Say again?
From the letter we received from them, they're very happy at that location.
Yeah, I think it was a better location, and I always questioned the library lawn being used for a parking lot.
Next, we have 3 new recommended events. One is the Falmouth Colonial Drill Historical Reenactment. It's in the Village Green on Saturday, June 4th. Do we have anyone from that organization? Great, because I did have a question. I hope it's a minor one. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Guy Anderson. I'm the commanding officer or the major of the Barnstable County Militia, which Yarmouth is part of. And the goal of this is just to reenact history, have fun, show the public a little colonial history. What we do, we get dressed up and like the painting you have in the room there. Pretty much that's how we look. The goal of this is also to restart the Falmouth Militia, which I was captain of years ago. And excuse me, and hopefully get somebody local started up since I live in Dennis and have a couple of jobs and I'm running the Barnstable County Militia.
And Mr. Patterson first.
Okay. I had a question.
Yeah.
Are you going to actually build a campfire in the green?
You stole my question.
No. I'm in talks with St. Barnabas Church and actually put an application, which we're going to be having a couple tents, and we're going to be doing I forget what they call it, but a metal plate over the ground. We aren't going to be digging any holes or anything like that on the green or St. Barnabas Church.
Thank you.
Assuming it gets approved.
Ms. Flynn, was that your question?
No, I wanted to comment on it because years ago, this used to take place on the Village Green. And there are very few activities that are actually allowed on the Village Green, but this is one of them. And I think the colonial enactment of it, it brings a lot of people, especially young people, parents bring their children, and I think it's a great event, so I'm glad you're doing it again.
Yeah, part of the whole goal is to try to get the young people more involved with reenacting, which has always been a very daunting task, to say the least. And I've been reenacting for probably 15 years, colonial
Well, when
history.
our moderator was about 17, he used to, Dave Vieira, he used to dress up in the colonial clothes and be out there doing his thing. Yeah, it's a great event.
That's what the green was for, right? It's what the green was originally for, right?
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Sue?
Since you haven't done it in a while, and I'm curious, based upon your experience with other events, how do you publicize the fact that there are going to be musket drills and firing drills? Because I assume it would sound like a shot?
Well, I'm, right now, Patrick, who's the captain of Yarmouth, is making recruitment posters for the Barnstable County Militia, which Falmouth will serve under along with Yarmouth. And I plan on that week taking several days off and just walking around town, maybe putting some posters up. This is kind of the first time I've organized an event like this on my own. Yeah, kind of moving up the ranks. So, yeah, given my limit, yeah, I'm working 2 jobs and doing other stuff along with Barnstable. So, you know, hopefully next year, if we can do it next year too, kind of build it up as the years go along, yeah.
Just, first of all, welcome to Falmouth and the great volunteerism of lots of people who work and fit in volunteerism. We really appreciate that. You might just want to coordinate the signage with the town manager's office to see what needs to be permitted, what not, just get a little more education in that. And then perhaps think about working with the Falmouth Enterprise to do an ad to publish the event, and also so people will be aware that it's occurring since it is new, because it sounds like it could be very successful if it gets off on the right foot.
Yes, well, that's one of the things, Patrick, once he does a recruitment poster, hopefully he'll get it to me. And we were planning on putting the local papers and hopefully the Cape Cod Times, if we can get it out soon enough. So.
And the Falmouth paper is called the Falmouth Enterprise.
Okay, yeah.
And we also have Falmouth Cable TV, FCTV.
Yeah,
which would be happy to
I actually interviewed on that. I was on after the Battle of Falmouth Harbor many years ago. I was private in the Falmouth Militia at the time, and I actually was on that radio station talking about colonial history, ironically.
If I may, one more thing, you should recruit Representative Dave Vieira to join you, because he's already got a uniform.
Oh, yes, well, we're going to try to recruit everybody we can to help keep the history alive.
As our town crier, he can go and announce it all over
Well, that's a good point, yeah.
Main Street that morning. So I think we need a vote on this. All those in favor?
I move approval.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions on the Concert Across America being sponsored by the Grandmothers Against Gun Violence on Sunday, September 25th?
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. The only reason I'm doing it quickly is we have a hearing scheduled for 7:30. So either we have to do it instantly or we have to hold off until after the hearing.
Do you have 60 seconds?
I
Go
have
ahead.
5 seconds.
Perfect.
The department meeting the other day asked me to alert the Village Association manager, Ms. Cosgrove.
Right.
I left 2 messages, but they haven't been returned. And so I thought I would take a letter to Mark Safone today to let him know about it, but I forgot that they were closed on Monday, so I'll get it to them this week. That was just, I guess, a courtesy call, so to speak.
Great. I noticed the recommendation was still concerned about this, but then recommended was for approval, right? Great. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed?
Thank you.
None. The ayes have it.
Here?
Next items are, we're going to hold off on the 3 weddings because we have a hearing scheduled for 7:30. This is an application for a shellfish aquaculture license by Paula Miller. I need to read into the account. The Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under section 240-77, the wetland regulations of the Falmouth zoning bylaw, and section 57 of chapter 130 of the Massachusetts General Laws in the application of Paula Miller of 175 Chester Street, North Falmouth, Mass. For a shellfish aquaculture license. The application was received on March 3rd, 2016, in the office of the Board of Selectmen. The public hearing will be held on Monday, April 11th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. The legal description: a shellfish aquaculture permit for one location in Buzzards Bay containing 3 acres with a depth of 12 to 16 feet and roughly 600 feet from the shore west-southwest of Fiddler's Cove and northeast of Nysneck. More specifically as follows: to grow eastern oysters in cages and soft mesh bags anchored to the bottom of the ocean with an elevation of no more than 42 inches off the ocean floor. A copy of the aquaculture license application is on the file at the office of the Board of Selectmen, and this was posted in the Enterprise on Friday, April 1st, and Friday, April 8th. And you must be our applicant,
Yes, I am.
Paula Miller.
Yes.
If you could please describe for the board what you're planning to do. We do have a fairly extensive packet here, but as part of the hearing, we need to know what your hopes and dreams are for this parcel.
Yes, well, I'm planning on farming some oysters, probably buy from hatchery in Maine. There's a couple of different places. They're Massachusetts-approved hatcheries, and probably start with buying them at about a half-inch in size to grow the grow-out site, and they usually take at least a year or longer before their minimum size of 3 inches, and probably buy about a couple $100,000, and it's probably mostly because of my interest in oysters, and they're great for the environment, and that's it. And hopefully probably sell them locally, possibly to some wholesalers once they get the proper licensing.
Any questions? Mr. Patterson?
Yes, in the description, proposed site, it said 600 inches offshore, but that's 600 feet?
It's 600 feet. Does that say inches? It should say feet.
When there's,
Oh, I do know the difference, but maybe that's
oh,
a
it's
typo.
instead of a single hatch, it doesn't say.
Between 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But thank you for
That's definitely a
clarifying
typo.
that. And at that point, the depth of the water will be at least 12 feet, is that what you're telling
Yes.
me? Okay, that makes sense then.
You really provided an extensive description of the management, for example, in storms, and can you just talk a little bit about that, because I thought it was quite good.
Oh, just depending on, if there was, let's say a tropical storm, and the winds were reaching, 60 to 70 miles an hour, then what I would do is we would go out there and we would put additional hex screws into the site to hold the lines down, and depending on the wind speed, but if the lines are being run in a direction to help hold them down in the proper manner to keep them stable, and obviously we would even double the amount out there, say if there was a hurricane in the forecast, and we base it all on wind speed and currents and wave action, so we'll be well prepared if something like that happens, so that nothing is moved, no debris or anything from the site.
And would the gear stay in the water forever?
I'm sorry?
How long would the gear stay in the water? Is it coming out during the winter?
It stays in, they'll be changed, like different size mesh cages will be changed out, depending on the size. When they get a little bigger, you have smaller mesh for the half size, and then the cages will have a little bit larger mesh. And they'll be, so they'll be switched through those, but they stay in the water they stay in these cages the entire time underwater. They never actually even see the sunlight. They are totally underwater the entire time.
Where will the gear be stored when it's not in the water?
But I have a piece of property of my own that I'll be storing it off property. So we have an area, a commercial piece of property, so the gear will be stored there.
Right.
Yes, it won't
Just wanna
be
make sure
stored on
everything
any
they have
beaches or
in-
anything like that. They will be stored,
Or in the residential area, if you're going to have, 25 of these fence mesh that have just come out of the water.
Yes, they will be where no one will see them.
Ms. Graham?
Is there any thought about a farm-to-table aspect of this business?
Yes, absolutely. That is something that, and it's kind of an exciting area now, and I think that there is a possibility of that. So hopefully it works out well, and I have a good crop, and we'll do some farm-to-table.
This is the first such endeavor, I think we've heard, that has that aspect to it, so I'm very excited about that.
Well, thank you.
I will point out that Chuck Martinson has taken a brief look at this. This is just the first, or actually his first brief look is the first step. Second step's coming here. It will have to go back to him and back to us again. But just to be pointed out that he has not really looked at this very carefully, and that he may have further issues once he looks at it more thoroughly. Are there any other farms in the area?
There is a Ward Farm, and then there is also Ty Perini has a farm.
Right, so there are two other farms right down there.
Yes.
How close are you to those?
Oh, I'm going to say approximately a half mile, maybe more.
Okay. And the only other thing I didn't see in this, maybe it's because we get it when we get our next look at it, is the location of any of the navigational waterways.
That was one thing that we were very careful about. Away from Fiddler's Cove Channel, it's not navigatable water. away from any mooring areas, really took the time to make sure that, that it was in an area that we wouldn't have to go back out and start the process all over again, because it really is probably easier to get it right the first time.
Could you explain to me why it's not in navigable water if it's 12 to 18 feet of water?
Because it's close to shore, and away from the channel, so it's not really, and there's, there can be some rocks in the area, that type of thing, so.
I know your family's been in the area for a long time, but is this your first time doing something like this, or have you
No,
done it?
I've actually been working with my nephew Ty Perini, who has been teaching me, so, and that's what brought my interest in it. So, yes, I'm kind of excited about it.
So that gives you a lot more information as to how this all works.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, Mr. Patterson?
We got an email late today that basically said that Jen McKay had taken a look at this, and she didn't see any reason why we shouldn't approve going forward with the whole permitting process, so we could mention that as well in conjunction with this hearing.
Okay.
Move approval.
We have to.
Public comment.
Public comment and close hearing and then move on to that. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak in favor of this agricultural license? Anyone like to speak against it? Anyone like to move closing the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And now, would we like to move forward with this?
Yes.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the application for a shellfish agricultural license. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it.
No?
Good luck in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to go back to our 3 weddings that we have. The first is the application from Heather Smith at Minot Beach on Friday, August 12th, 2016, from 4:30 to 5:30, with set up time at 4 o'clock. Any questions?
Would that go these one at a time, or I'll do all 3?
Sure. And then Claire Lund
Okay.
on Saturday, September 24th at Old Silver Beach, on the public side only. And this is a set 10 o'clock arrival time, ceremony from 11 to 11:30. And then on Saturday, July 23rd, Ryan Amaral at Surf Drive Beach, set up at 5 o'clock, the ceremony from 6 to 6:30.
I just have a question. In the notes, Don Hoffer commented on on Heather Smith regarding the tide at the beach. And I just want to make sure that they know about that, how the tide comes in and be very little beach left
Oh, yeah,
after a certain period of time.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe if I could just comment and thank Diane Davidson for her thorough work in setting up the appropriate conditions for each of these applications. I move approval for all 3 applications.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. And Ms. Harper, if you would talk us through the new not recommended article.
Well,
This is
this is a request for the Scholastic Summer Reading Road Trip, which the group didn't express any particular concerns with, other than it does not comply with the board's policy for events during June, July, and August. Therefore, it's our practice not to recommend events that are inconsistent with the board's policy. So this is really for the board's consideration.
Okay, do we have anyone from 8 Cousins who'd like to describe it to us?
So I first just want to say that this was the date that was offered to us, so that's for the reason we chose, well, we didn't choose July 5th, but that was the date that was given because it is going to be traveling around the country. It has been suggested that the town
you just
hall lot
introduce
might be...
yourself?
Sorry, I'm Sarah Hines from 8 Cousins,
Great.
Sarahhines.
Great, thanks.
I even practiced saying that. It has been suggested that the town hall lot might be a better offering than the spots in front of the store, which we would absolutely consider. We would need to be somewhat close to the store because it will require some staffing both on our side and the Scholastic side, because the event will include in-store events. But that was a suggestion made that the town hall lot close to the store might be a better option.
When you say this was your only choice, do you mean by the folks who run the event, the Scholastic folks?
Yes, the bus is going to be touring the country, and this was the day that they would be close enough to us to visit.
Thank you.
If it were going to be on Main Street, I guess I'm not sure what's happening between the van or the bus and Eight Cousins.
So the proposal is just to park in front of the store. The activities would take place in the store and perhaps behind in our parking lot. The only thing that would be on the street, on the sidewalk, might be a character. We would not put any permanent, any activities that would be blocking traffic on the street. We would instead like to let people know that it's there by having the bus in front of the store and then pulling in to the activities, which would be off of the street.
When you've had events before, I think Harry Potter or perhaps authors, that kind of thing, has there been any issues with traffic getting, jammed up in front of the store, whether on the sidewalk or in the street?
Well, because of the way that our store is laid out, we have the rear entrance, and so usually we would, anything like that involved a line, would go out the back of the store and down into the parking lot, if necessary, down the alleyway, but not, we don't line up in the front, we don't block the front of the store for those guys.
Would you be able to hire a police detail if that were to be the subject of our permission today?
For the sidewalk?
To manage wherever there might be a problem?
We need to look further at the requirements on that.
Meaning the cost?
Yeah.
So if the bus were to be parked here, what would be the relationship of the bus to the event? Would it just be parked there with no activity, or would people be going back and forth, or how would that?
So if the bus was parked a little bit further away, it would be, we would then request that some of the activities be on the green closer to the bus, with the store activities happening inside.
On the green here?
Well, yes, that would have to be a different part of the proposal. The activities are not more than having tables set up with, things for kids to do at the tables. It's not a permanent situation. Perhaps a few games, but it's all contained in, what they've requested is the parking space and then the 25 feet wide area, and that's for the games and activities with no semi-permanent structures.
If the parking were in the lot here, would 5 spaces cover it to get that bus out of there? And I guess that's when it's parked, it's 5 spaces, but if it's parked sort of against the sidewalk, you can get that in when it's when it's empty.
The 5 spaces is for the parking only. So actually, the activity, if the further away the bus is parked and the activities are closer, we would need to request more space, which is when we requested the first 5 spaces, it was my understanding that we would then bring the activities in more internal and in our own parking lot that wouldn't be blocking any communal space.
And what I'm envisioning is as close to your store as possible, those 5 spots in the town hall lot, close there, so it would actually be fairly close by. But to get the bus out, I'm not sure whether that would require more spaces.
The traffic between the lot and there's not good foot traffic between the lot and our store. You have to come around, so I would request that we have space for activities so that people aren't having to go behind the store between those bushes and buildings. We'd rather direct people into the front, if that was the case.
I guess I'm envisioning a different thing.
I know that the timeline is getting shorter, but it would seem this would be totally different from in a sense, from the project that the working group looked at. And I would think if they're going to use the green, there might be other people. There might be something else that might be scheduled here on that day. I don't know. But I'm wondering if it isn't too much of a delay, if we should refer it back to the...
They meet every 4 months, so...
Well, I mean, they'd have to have I don't know, Heather, your liaison to that group.
Anything that would have come back to us, because anything there would have been contrary to our policy. And so we would have already heard about it. Heather?
The committee did discuss it with the parking on Main Street. Either way, you're impacting 5 parking spaces on July 5th, and that really is something the board needs to
Right.
determine. But they didn't, and they discussed the event in some detail, and Sarah gave us a lot of information. There was really very little concern. There were 2 police officers here who thought it through, and they felt comfortable that they didn't have concerns with the event as proposed. It simply doesn't meet the board's policy.
And we do have a note from the 2 business owners who those spots are right in front of, saying they have no difficulty.
Yeah, just quick follow-up. We did ask Sarah to make sure she contacted the businesses that would be impacted by that parking, so they did not hear about it here this evening first, that she'd talk with them in advance.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I'm struggling with why it takes 5 parking spaces. I mean, you're talking about 100 feet of length if you were going end to end. I mean, that bus can't be that big.
The request was for a vehicle that is 35 feet long, approximately 5 parking spaces. So that's the information I have. And I did want to address a question from earlier. We do not anticipate that this would be a lot of people at one time. This is over a period of, maybe a couple of hours of strolling. We're not going to be expecting huge crowds at the same time.
I would feel much more comfortable in the town hall lot than actually on Main Street.
Oh, yeah, I would too, definitely.
Well, and when I read this, I actually thought about using a piece of Town Hall Square where the bus could actually, yes, take up however many spaces required, but kind of be parallel instead of perpendicular, because I'm sure it would block access if you were perpendicular, as most of the cars are. But then the activities could be on that grassy area.
That's what I was
exists.
envisioning.
Yeah, and it gets the children off of Main Street. There's a nice buffer with the kiosk area right there on the corner. And there's actually, I think, power set up right there so that if you needed to access electricity, whatever the fee would be. So it really would be a much nicer and safer area, I think, for a child-centered activity like this. And I think it would get the traffic off of Main Street and more into the Town Hall Square area. So, that's how I thought that we might be able to accommodate it. And I understand that this bus is only going to be able to roll through at that particular date, which constrains it. I had a brief conversation with Sarah, just asking her some questions on my own, but Sarah, you had indicated that in the future you could actually specify a different time of the year?
Well, this is the first time they've done this tour, and so we were quite honored to be asked to be part of it, but they're going to be doing the tour again in the summer. However, it would be in the summer, June, July, and August, so so we would plan a little bit further ahead next time if there were specific date requirements, anything that we needed to
We prefer
plan.
June.
Yeah.
If you have any control, we prefer June or anything on Main Street. And I guess I'm also a little bit reticent putting that much advertising of that bus on Main Street. It does seem to be, that we are giving town property away to the right prominent position. Well, Town Hall I feel a little bit more comfortable with.
And it's for a 15-hour period. I mean, when you look at the morning until the evening, it is a long day, in a sense. But-
So I did put in the request for the day because I wanted to be able to block the spots off in the morning. If we needed to limit the time of the event, we can certainly do that. I put in the request for the day, I wasn't sure I wasn't sure at the time where they would be coming from and where they're going. But I don't anticipate that they'll be here for 8 hours. I think we're thinking maybe 3 or 4 hours, but I don't have a specific time now. And I also can give them, these are our limits. They're waiting to hear back about it.
Street fair is the next day?
No, the street fair is the following.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah, I certainly would like to see us get those parking spaces back by evening when there's so many people that eat at the restaurants.
Yeah.
So if we could make sure that it was over by 4 o'clock.
That's exactly what I would need to know from you. And also, in terms of staffing it, we are not in the position to staff it for 8 hours, so I was thinking probably morning until early afternoon.
Well, you can tell, if we give you a timetable, that makes it easier for you to tell Scholastic. The town told us you have to be out of here by then.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
If we give you a timetable saying it's got to be done by 4, it
Yeah.
makes it easier for you to tell Scholastic.
Yes, that's exactly what
That's
it
what the
would.
permit allows us to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture, I'm a little bit concerned with a crowd of children and characters running back and forth between cars, so is the board imagining that the event is going to be on the green with the two roadways on either side and then the store still almost, in the next block? Or is the board envisioning that it would be in the same block as the store, in which case there's really only a sidewalk?
Well, I actually
Yeah.
looked to see if this could work. And it's really the area from the kiosk there on the corner, just up maybe 100 feet. And there is a large green grassy area between all the offices that form that row up along the side. So it would not be up, just outside of town hall here. It's actually down closer to Main Street in that sort of triangular green area.
And you're comfortable, you have the staff to manage that particular area?
There will be staffing from Scholastic that will be there, and then they've asked that the store staff members also be present. And the event is a little bit more of a rolling kind of thing, so when we say activities, I don't mean multiple things happening at once, but maybe this is for a little while, and then this author comes, and this character, it's going to be more of a changing activity throughout the time period.
So who do you expect to come? I mean, where are the children going to come from who will attend this? Periodically, you notify parents that this is happening?
We'll include it in our
How does
marketing, so it will be on our in our newsletter, on our website, all of our social media marketing and in-store promotion. It's also part of Scholastic's national marketing, which they're putting out. But we'll really be looking more at people who are on Main Street that day as a part of the experience on Main Street. We will let people, our customers, know about it, but we're anticipating more. We're not going to be working on bringing in large crowds of people. It's more for the people who are already on Main Street.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the logistics of reserving parking spaces. You're almost better off to start earlier in the day.
Correct.
And end at, say, 1 o'clock.
I was hoping that if we do get permission, then the plan would be to block off the spaces as early in the morning as we were allowed and start the event. So have reserved for whenever the bus shows up, and I do not have that time at the moment. Yes, and then finish early and be,
So do you think
and then leave it.
a 1 o'clock finish is reasonable?
I think if we started at 10, then I wouldn't ask for more than 4 hours, just from start to finish, cleanup and everything. So I would say, I would ask for 2.
Okay.
Just to clarify, your parking space request of 5 was really to accommodate the bus.
It is just for the bus.
So you're not asking for other additional parking for this, are you?
Not in my original proposal. The request was that the parking in front of the store and then to bring the activities sort of through the store to our own parking lot. With the second proposal of the town hall lot, I would need some more activity space because there's not good traffic. It would not be good to have people trying to get to our back parking lot from the town hall lot. So I would want to keep the activity closer to that area so there was, less back and forth.
But the green space that Mr. Patterson is talking about would work?
Sorry?
The green space that Mr. Patterson is talking about would work well for the activities?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
The green space in between the parking area and your business.
Yeah.
Would that work well for these activities?
Right, that would be that goes with the second proposal,
Right.
is that we would ask for that green space along with the parking so that things were closer together and there was less traffic. People weren't having to move between activities.
I'm much more inclined to approve the parking spaces and the green space with the parking spaces in the town hall than just the parking spaces on Main Street.
Agreed.
I'll second that.
Well, I just want to say that it's July 5th, too,
Yeah.
so the town is full to capacity on that day, which is a Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Well, but that's, if we can keep it earlier in the day, then the activities that start off in the afternoon and evening,
From 9 to 1 or 10 to 2, is that what you're saying?
I think she's asking for.
It's 10 to 2.
But it's going to include marking off the spaces too, so it's probably going to be more like 8 to 2 so that you have access to those spots, right?
Correct.
I mean, I think that's a realistic time to actually specify if we approve this.
So, suggestion is 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.?
Right.
I have a very difficult time because of the date on the 5th of July. I mean, that's when we have probably, I don't know, 80,000 people in town for the summer. It's
Yep.
really a lot of people. And I think to take away certain areas or to try to accommodate it, especially on the 5th of July, if it were July 22nd, it wouldn't be so bad.
Sarah, is there
I
any
think
way that some of
they
the
could
other
come on a
businesses,
different day.
some of the other businesses who use this lot for their business, I think there's a dentist who must park his car there. Is there any way you could offer those businesses to park in your lot? So we empty out the lot with 5 cars that go into your lot and makes room for 4 or 5 additional spaces where the bus is going to go?
We could offer 3 spaces in our lot.
Is that a compromise that gets closer to,
Well, I like the idea, but I just think it's the wrong day of the year.
I do too.
I
but-
think maybe next year, if it were on a different day, where it didn't conflict with 4th of July or road race or something like that, it would work a lot better. But it's asking a lot to try to accommodate that on the day after the 4th, I think. That's just,
And for what our general policy has been on avoiding Main Street, there isn't another location they can go because that's where their business is.
Right.
As some of the other places we have said, with the farmer's market, you go to Marina Park because they weren't tied into a particular location. Do we have a motion?
Well, I'm going to move that we approve it with the alternate venue. And maybe I could, I don't know, unless there's no second, but I would like to see Falmouth remain family-friendly, and this is a family-friendly type of event, and it's educationally oriented, so that's
The
why I
motion is
would.
from 8 AM to 2 PM with 5 spots in Town Hall lot and use of the green space between the parking and the store.
Yes.
All right, I will second. Do we have any discussion from the, contributions from the audience? Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. It seems to me that if you move this bus off Main Street, I mean, it has writing and advertisement all over and stuff, it would diminish the impact. Perhaps if you gave them the first 3 spaces in the beginning, heading down towards their store, that would give the room, the bus would be able to back up and leave and fit in a much smaller area and still be able to be seen from the street and all the people that are going to be around with their children. And I mean, it seems to me that moving it off Main Street would really diminish the impact and lessen the crowd. And there are a zillion kids around on the 4th of July. And I mean, we're encouraging them to read. I think that's a positive and fundamental thing.
I think those are the spots we're talking about.
Pardon me?
Those are the spots we are suggesting.
Oh, as you turn around the corner? I mean, still on Main Street, the first 3 as you turn around the corner, the bus could pull in there, and instead of using 5 spaces, they could use 3, and it would be right on Main Street still, and the visual impact would be there. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
This isn't advertising really a local business. It's not really advertising 8 Cousins. It's advertising a good national company. And I really hear the local business sort of agreeing with the board that this is fairly inflexible on the part of this national organization, and it may be better planned for next year on a date that would work for everyone, and that also would give a Cousins plan to show the board a parking plan, a crowd plan, we're talking about children running around in one of the busiest days of the year. So I think would be a good idea with more planning. I don't think you've had that opportunity, so I'm not inclined to allow it.
Mr. Dufresne?
Aidan Dufresne, Precinct 2, Mr. Hill, I put my hearing aids in. It sounds to me, number one, the date and the time in the middle of July, or the beginning of July, has a terrible impact and displacement and disposition of the Main Street as a whole. So I would hope that your board would have at least notify the Chamber of Commerce and some of the other agencies that are going to be impacted by this type of special event. If this permit is not been granted before, so there's no precedent. I think it requires a hell of a lot more discussion and hearing than what I'm hearing tonight. And I would hope you would weigh very carefully your decision tonight.
Just so you know, that Mr. Kasparian is one of the references that Sarah has listed.
Say again?
Mr. Kasparian is one of the references that Sarah has listed in this application.
Yeah.
So she's been in communication with him, and she has communicated with the other businesses already, in addition to what we would do, that she has done what she can to let people know.
She's already notified all the people, and everybody said it's okay.
The only ones we know of that have said okay are the two businesses that the parking spaces are right in front of. I'm not sure the other ones were asked, is it okay with you, as opposed to her just notifying them that she was hoping to do
Well,
this.
my only concern, what I know about Main Street is when you have that kind of an impact on one small corner of Main Street, it really affects the traffic patterns throughout the entire Main Street. So I would hope that, again, everybody's notified and on track of what the possibilities are. And I think I heard that the date of July 5th, a lot of people.
Yeah,
One more.
Yep.
yeah.
Second?
Megan English Braga, Precinct 8. 2 points. I think the first is that Eight Cousins really is a treasure, as all of our businesses are, but Eight Cousins has a really particular position in that they're one of the few bookstores that are really left in towns. And on July 5th, if it's sunny at that time of the day, folks are at the beach. Yes, people are on Main Street, but if it's a beautiful day, folks are at the beach. If it's a rainy day, every parent is trying to find something to do with their children. I understand the concern about the impact on business, but 5 parking spots for maybe a period of 4 hours, we're talking about this 8 in the morning to set up, but realistically, Main Street isn't, even in the summer, to capacity at 8 o'clock generally. I think it's well worth it. And the second component is, I believe part of why Scholastic is coming is because of what Eight Cousins does. They're a player in children's publishing, and they hold a particular value, I think, to our town because they, the programs that they run in our schools. And so to support them in this way and to bring that notoriety, Scholastic isn't stopping at every bookstore in America. It's coming to specific places. I'm sure Cape Cod is not en route to anywhere else. They're coming here, they've offered to come here for a particular reason, and it's because of the business that Eight Cousins does. So I would hope that even given the inconvenience it might have, depending on the weather, that we would consider, again, it's not the ideal time, but taking advantage of, I think, what is really an honor for Eight Cousins and by extension for our community. So, thank you.
Any other comment? Well, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. I'm sorry, it is not, it's 2-2, so it does not pass.
I'll come back next year.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on business is the ballot question. And I will read the ballot question as it will be put there and ask someone to make a motion. The ballot question reads as, shall the town of Falmouth approve charter amendments proposed by town meeting held on November 9th, 2015, relative to merging the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission as summarized as follows. Amendment to Article 7, appointed town boards, by deleting Section C7-9 Historical Commission and amending Sections C7-15 Historic District Commissions. Create a new public body organized under Chapter 40C of the Massachusetts General Laws, which will have the powers and duties of the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission, and to be known as the Historical Commission. Given under our days, this 11th day of April 2016.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
A long
None.
time coming.
The ayes have it. Next is, we put our agenda to discuss the town meeting results. And I would just say, I thought that the way town meeting went this year was, I want to thank fellow members of the board, because I think handing out different articles to each of us and having us prepared for it allowed the town meeting to hear from different people supporting different positions, and I thought that showed, and certainly from our town manager and assistant manager, the amount of preparation we did to make sure that we were ready to answer some questions. A lot of questions that we were prepared for weren't asked, but I still think the town meeting did get the impression that we had done our homework and were ready to answer them, and so I was gratified by how well it went from that standpoint. I thought that there were a bunch of issues that were raised. I thought it promoted excellent debate. People didn't necessarily get the vote they wanted, but every issue that was raised had a chance to be heard and debated. And I certainly enjoyed it. I think town meeting is one of the best forms of democracy you can have, because you do have a chance for people to speak, to be heard, and to have debate followed.
Well, I think the other thing that worked well were the new rules regarding time in terms of presentations and discussion. I think sometimes before, when they would go on for half an hour or it took a really long time, town meeting members would get sort of agitated or, hoping that it would be over soon. But it went very smoothly, I think, in that regard, where the points that had to be made were made, the questions that had to be asked were asked, and town meeting members seemed to be very comfortable with how it went, so.
I really think town meeting members have to be credited where they took every opportunity during precinct meetings to demand information from whether it was selectmen or the staff, and we had an opportunity to get the information that was asked and get it before the members. And I think that the meeting was very productive, and I really completely credit the town meeting members for that productivity.
Two things. First, I guess I did hear some comments from some of the town meeting members that they thought that the committee reports up front, that there were too many, and they weren't relevant to the town meeting action. That the committee reports should be related to any follow-up on town meeting actions in the past, such as the Lawrence Windows project. That seemed to be a welcome thing. But some of the more generalized presentations could just as well have taken place at one of our meetings and not necessarily tied up at the beginning of town meeting. I heard that. But I'd like to echo the comment that I thought it was a very constructive town meeting and very productive. And it's certainly in the back of my mind, I was remembering the presentation by Michael Beschloss at last year's Massachusetts Municipal Association meeting, where he's a presidential scholar at Georgetown University, and he was sharing this with selectmen from all over the state. And he said he thought that if the founding fathers of the United States were to come back and kind of look down at governments across the whole country, they would be happiest with the town meeting form of government that we actually operate by, that they feel like that's the closest thing to real democracy. This is his perspective. And he grew up in the suburbs of Chicago during the old Mayor Daley realm of crony politics. He went to Williams College here in Massachusetts and eventually to Harvard. So he's got a pretty good perspective. And of course, now he's a professor in Washington, D.C. So those were his words of wisdom to all of us, that keep up the good work is essentially what he was telling us. And I think this town meeting certainly exemplified that.
Well, I was going to say, I listen to people from other towns, as you can imagine, a lot, and they all have open town meeting. We're the only town on the Cape that has representative town meeting. And this actually was voted, and I think it was 1936. So whoever the residents were at the time and the selectmen were at the time, I think they had a great deal of foresight in declaring that this should be a representative town meeting, because it does work very well. And I think you're right, the precinct meetings help too, because all the nitty-gritty questions really get asked there, and people come quite prepared. This was, I agree, it was one of the best town meetings in a long time.
Okay. Next item is to discuss the grinder pump policy. And I would be happy to hear from the public at this point, and then we're going to have some discussion. I'm not sure we'll be able to actually get to a vote, but if there are people from the public, I guess I'd start with that. Mr. Grosser, did you come here for this?
I'm surprised to see you too. So I do have a PowerPoint. Most of the slides are from the town's website.
For my own sake of what we're in for, how many other people would like to speak on this issue tonight? Okay, thank you. There's a hole right there.
You're doing great. Yeah, and the instructions are right in front of you. Yeah.
I was going to say, while we're on setting up, Howard Grosser, Precinct 2 and current president of the Falmouth Heights Mara Vista Neighborhood Association. Just again, while we're getting set up as a preliminary comment, I know that a number of people have suggested for some time now that you establish a committee to make these policy recommendations. A couple of meetings ago, you pointed out what you felt were the drawbacks to the committee concept. So I know you won't be appointing one, but I did want you to know that I support the committee model because it allows for a type of discussion and an exchange of ideas that by the format, this hearing process doesn't. Here, as we know, it's more of competing speeches, less of a dialogue, and I would appreciate the opportunity for the dialogue. But anyway, within these limitations, I do thank you for inviting public input on the policy draft, and I'm pleased to contribute.
I expect we may be asking you questions and expect you to give some answers, so I'm hoping we have not disbanded the dialogue part of this, because that's what I'm looking for.
All good. We're good.
It'll take a minute or two. It's
Have the list of the board choices to be able to discuss this.
No, you'll see it
It's
up
up
here.
here, okay. I'll just take notes. I didn't know Bryce Smith.
And we're not limited to those four anyway.
Right.
How'd they ever do presentations when you were selectman, Mr. Dufresne?
I don't know why it's so slow.
Action.
This is PK back, I bet that's what it is. In the future, if you ever have a presentation, you can bring it into us well in advance, and we can have it set up ready to go. Just if anyone else is planning it in the future.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I did send you an email. I didn't get a response, but it was asking just that, what I needed to do. So it's kind of new at this, but in any case. Marvelous. Thank you. Well, like you all, I attended last November's town meeting. You recall that warrant Article 24 was presented at some length and commented upon also at some length. As you also know, no standing count was required because it was passed by an overwhelming voice vote. So I direct your attention to the opening sentence of warrant Article 24, which reads that the grinder pumps will remain property of the town. Yeah, thanks. See. So this is one of 8 slides from the town's website. in my 12-slide PowerPoint. Having the town provide a pump and then transfer the ownership to the property owners is pretty much the polar opposite of what town meeting voted for and advised you to do when they voted for Article 24. There is not a private home in the Little Pond Sewer Service Area that was designed and built in such a way as to require a grinder pump. There is, however, a municipal sewer system in the Little Pond Sewer System that was designed and built in such a way as to require grinder pumps. So the pumps, therefore, are not arguably part of the sewer system. The pumps are clearly part of the sewer system. And just because the town is requiring that the pumps be located on private property doesn't suddenly turn them into private property. We see that installation costs for low-pressure connection may or may not be more expensive than the cost for the gravity connection on average. I just wanted to comment that comparing the average cost of the grinder pump installations with the average cost of the gravity installations is a relatively meaningless metric. The relevant comparison is the cost of a grinder pump installation on a given property with the cost of a gravity installation if it could have been accomplished on that same property. That is, how much did the pump contribute to the additional cost of a sewer connection incurred by an individual grinder pump property owner? No one outside of the Little Pond Sewer Service Area needs to, but it's pretty much the same amount that it would cost anyone in town right now, if you wanted to for some reason, to install a pump between their house and their septic tank. And that would be the cost of excavating an 8-foot deep hole to house the pump, the cost of the concrete to keep it from floating, the cost of the plumber to pipe it, the cost for the electrician to wire it, and maybe the cost to upgrade an entire electrical service if the existing one can't handle the extra load that's required by the pump. Next one. This also from the town's website. As to the inference of some kind of slippery slope precedent, I'm not seeing one. There's just no connection between the town maintaining a mandated electrically powered piece of pumping equipment and any existing or future septic systems, gravity systems, alternative systems, or even the 5 existing pumps in Woods Hole. I have no objection to the town maintaining those 5 pumps, but they weren't installed because of a municipal design, and there was no mandate involved with those pumps. There is, however, a precedent that I think does need to be avoided, and that's one in which the town chooses a sewer design that necessitates a piece of equipment, mandates the use of that equipment, writes the spec and the bid invitation for that equipment, purchases the equipment, and then leaves everyone on their own to maintain that equipment. I don't see the liability in keeping 700 sewer system components operational, and if there is any, I can't imagine it's any greater than the liability in keeping the 2 lift stations that they're replacing operational. If you do a Google search for a grinder pump lawsuit, you'll get the same 184,000 results that I did. You won't find a single liability issue as a result of the town having a policy which was too comprehensive. On the contrary, there's more potential liability in doing nothing about the maintenance of these pumps than by doing the right thing by people who are forced to install them. Slide. As to cost, if maintaining 700 pumps costs more than maintaining the 2 lift stations that the 700 pumps replaced, perhaps we didn't save the money that we told we had saved, by choosing this particular sewer design. And why the maintenance costs were not included in the original budget for the project has never really been explained. So any disappointment that you feel as a result of the omission of the maintenance costs just shouldn't be taken out on the 700 people who are potentially going to get stuck with those costs. Slide. So option 1 from the town website is what the town was prepared to do before Article 24 was passed, which was do nothing. I hope that it was included only so that we can feel better when it's rejected. Option 1, as Amy Lowe pointed out when she gave the presentation, may be the case in Fall River, Taunton, Barnstable, towns that reinforce my good decision to live with you all in Falmouth. Next slide. Option 1 is not the case in Bridgewater, Shirley, Chelmsford, Tisbury, Oak Bluffs, Edgartown, Marion, Mattapoisett, Kingston, Sturbridge, Amesbury, Essex, and a bunch of others that provide full maintenance services. Next slide. So a comment on the warranty. The 15 to 20-year design is a marketing claim from our pump's low bidder, E1. The wastewater superintendents in Chelmsford and Marion said that 10 years was closer to reality. But regardless, if E1 is so confident of that 15 to 20-year figure, I suggest that there's no risk in them voluntarily providing a 14-year warranty at no additional cost to the town. Town website's option 2 is essentially to do nothing but with a longer warranty than option 1. And I think it's fine to pursue as a component of a comprehensive policy, but again, please pursue it on behalf of the pump's owner, the town. Option 3 from the town's website is still stuck on issues that don't exist. They don't exist in the dozens of towns that we know of which maintain their pumps, and there's no reason to think that these issues will suddenly materialize here. The private property concern is baseless, and unlike those towns we saw a few slides back, if you prefer that our own DPW employees avoid private property, you can put the maintenance out to a bid and award a contract to an outside company, like our own low bidder, E1, who maintains their pumps for many other towns. Which brings us to option 4 from the town website. It has some of the desired elements, but it seems to be written in such a way as to encourage you to reject it. No one has ever insisted, suggested, even hinted that abuse repairs should be covered. So that part can be removed and hopefully not discussed again. $250,000 to $350,000 a year comes out to about $500 per pump per year, which seems to be in conflict with the assurances that we received that it'll be a $0 cost for the first 5 years because of the warranty, and then the data from the other towns, which we went through at town meeting, which showed figures of around $60 per year after that. Certainly compared to $0 and without any context, $250,000 to $350,000 per year is a whole lot of money. But we've never been told how that compares with the maintenance costs of the 2 lift stations that the 700 pumps are replacing. I expect that it costs less to maintain 700 grinder pumps than the 2 lift stations, and I mentioned it earlier, but I want to repeat that however high or low the maintenance costs will be, they are not additional costs. The costs were always there. They just were omitted from the project's budget as presented to town meeting for some reason, and I think that was a mistake. Town meeting can correct that mistake if they pass a grinder pump maintenance bylaw like a number of other towns have done, but we're here tonight so that this board, armed with some powerful advice from town meeting, can correct that mistake with a comprehensive policy. In other towns, the system for chargebacks is the water and sewer bill. In Chelmsford, in the year of the greatest number of service calls on their 450 pumps, 6 were abuse-related, and Chelmsford added repair charges to 6 water and sewer bills. So I don't think there was a lot of staff involved. And clearly, the incentive to not abuse the system is pretty effectively built right in, because if you abuse it, you won't be able to discharge any wastewater, and you'll also have to pay for a repair. Second from the bottom, the sentence starting, however, is curious to me, because the town had other options and made the decision to require that the sewer infrastructure be installed on private property. And not a single pump's been installed yet, so it's not too late to direct that the pumps be installed on town property. But either way, the location of the infrastructure does not magically eliminate the town's responsibility for maintaining it. Town meeting knew the equipment's proposed location when they voted for Article 24. And if the town needs permission and indemnification in order to keep the sewer system pumping infrastructure operational, I'm certain that property owners are going to cooperate. I don't think that there's a person in this room who would pay for a repair that's covered under a warranty, and so there's no reason to suggest that the town would. To me, and I think many others, option 4 is the best of the 4 options posted on the town website. Again, even though it seems to be written in a way that would invite you to reject it, but it still needs some work to be an acceptable policy, so I'm suggesting that we take the best elements of option 4, combine them with the clear sentiment of town meeting and the language of Article 24, and choose an option we can call option 5. So option 5 will unequivocally state that the pumps are integral components of the sewer system and town property, that they'll be powered during outages, maintained, repaired, and replaced when necessary by the town at no cost to the property owner, except in the case of abuse. Option 5 also offers you the opportunity to codify your frequently stated goal of equalizing the cost between the gravity and the grinder pump properties. You can add language to option 5 to include that one-time payment for the extra installation costs associated with the pump, and you can consider a lease agreement for 3 square feet of each of 700 properties where the town's pumping equipment is going to be housed. I had suggested $100 per year credit on the water bill. That'll cover the cost of the $50 a year of electricity to run it, and the homeowner's sewage backup protection rider that everyone can get in their insurance policies. Option 5 is also the best way to protect the real estate values of 700 properties that are required to use the grinder pumps. And I think the town has a fiduciary responsibility to do this. Costs have been mentioned several times tonight in the course of referring to the different options. But we've left out the elephant in the room cost, perhaps the greatest cost of all, which has no hard figure yet associated with it. But if the pumps are not maintained by the town, there may well be a cost reflected in the sale prices and the values of 700 pieces of property. I ask you to try and see this from the perspective of a potential home buyer who, like most everyone else on the planet, has never heard of a grinder pump. Your realtor shows you 2 homes in Heights or Mara Vista. The homes are identical in every way: square footage, number of bedrooms, condition, proximity to Little Pond, everything except the sewer connection. Let's say one has a gravity connection, the other has a grinder pump connection. So in their required disclosure, if the realtor can acknowledge the pump and state with a certainty that the town powers it during outages, maintains it, repairs it, and will replace it when required, I expect that those 2 identical homes are still effectively identical. But if, on the other hand, the disclosure has to be, that's your grinder pump. You need it because you have to move your wastewater uphill to the main sewer line. It'll cost you about $600 a year for maintenance, electricity, and sewage backup insurance, and about $5,000 when you have to replace it every 10 years. And you'll probably want a maintenance contract, and you may want to buy a generator if you plan on showering or flushing during a power outage. I think that those 2 formerly identical houses are no longer identical, and the difference is going to be reflected in the sales price of the grinder pump property. Next slide. So the seller is obviously negatively impacted, but so is the town, in the form of a reduced tax base. If as a result of a less than comprehensive grinder pump maintenance policy, if 700 homes decline in value by as little as $10,000 as compared with their gravity neighbors, the town loses over $600,000 a year in taxes, which is double the DPW's projected annual maintenance costs. Now, I know there are 2 schools of thought on the potential for adverse effect on property values. To support it, people like me cite personal preference, common sense, can point to some anecdotal evidence. To deny it, people say that there's no definitive proof. And I've done some research, and in all candor, proof has been elusive so far, mostly because I can't find a high property value seaside community in which the town doesn't maintain the grinder pumps. We're talking about 700 homes with an aggregate value of close to $300 million. And I hope you agree that they shouldn't be the test subjects for the consequences of a deficient maintenance policy. So in addition to a comprehensive town grinder pump maintenance policy being the right decision, it's also a prudent business decision. And this was Amy Lowe's last slide. I don't understand why it took a citizen's initiative to bring the maintenance issue to the forefront, and I don't understand why there's so much resistance to it. The required course of action just seems so obvious to me. So my question, Mr. Chairman, through you to I'm not even sure who, is what am I missing? That's it.
Mr. Grosser, little discord if you don't mind.
No, I'd love to.
All of the research that you did, you said you had a tough time with seaside communities. I really have 2 things that worry me about your proposal, which I thought was excellent. The first one is that I wonder if you'd agree that in a community where there are a lot of seasonal homes that may have interrupted use of the grinder pumps, like any mechanical system, there may be more tension put on that system, and therefore more repairs needed. So that's kind of question one. I'm wondering what you were able to find on that. And then secondly, I'm very interested in the systems that other communities use to determine whether or not there was abuse.
Well, as to the first question, I wasn't involved with the engineering of it, and so what I can tell you is I know that Marion is the wastewater superintendent I spoke with, who said that 10 years was the average pump life in that town. They have a number of seasonal residents as well. We have been told by our engineers that the seasonal nature of the community isn't going to matter as far as the entire system's performance. In other words, that you don't need the pressure from all the pumps at once to move things further uphill. I wish I was in a position to comment further on it, because I probably had more to say about it if I actually knew. I already forgot your second question, sorry.
How do other towns manage when there is a disagreement between the homeowner and the service company in terms of whether or not there was abuse, especially when there are so many houses that have rental components to the use of the home?
Again, near as I know, there hasn't been a lot of acrimony about it, in that most of those other towns remove the entire pump core, and if there's dental floss in it, then it was abused by definition. If there's a diaper wrapped in it, then it was abused by definition. Not a lot of rocket science to that particular device. It's either jammed by something that you shouldn't have put down there, or it isn't.
Thank you.
Sure.
Who else would like to speak? In the back?
Larry Backman, Precinct 3. I've owned a home on Great Pond since 2003, and I recently moved down here full-time. I've been watching this discussion for the past year or so and paying attention to the biweekly selectmen's meetings online. I saw a couple things in the last one that prompted me to come here and say two things. First, I think there is no technical information on the town website or provided by the town to help someone understand the challenges involved in a grinder pump and owning a house with a grinder pump. And I think that's really, really important, both to someone who understands engineering and to someone who's a homeowner who doesn't understand engineering. So I would ask that as time passes, that some of the do's and don'ts of grinder pumps get put out, the failure modes of grinder pumps, which leads me to the second thing that I feel is important to say, that it's been represented in previous meetings that you're trying to equalize the cost to both sides of the equation, grinder versus gravity. I would argue that because of the nature of a grinder pump, no electricity, no flow, you have to think about how to equalize the usage of a grinder pump versus gravity. And what I mean by that is, if you don't have a generator, 30 gallons is 10, 15, maybe 20 flushes. 12, whatever. It's not a lot. So immediately, you're at a very disparate level if you have a gravity pump versus a grinder pump. When I bought this house in 2003, I looked at it and said, I've got gas, I've got town water, and I've got a septic system. I know how to maintain a septic system. I know Mr. Dufresne mentioned in the previous meeting that it costs $600 a year to maintain a septic system. It's easy to do, and I'm never going to have to leave my house in a power outage because I have what I need. No longer the case with a grinder pump. Now I need to buy a generator. And I look around my neighborhood, I look at people around me, and I say to myself, how are some of the 70, 75-year-old couples going to be able to afford to buy a generator to keep them in the house when there's a power outage? So that's it.
Mr. Netto?
Joe Netto, Precinct 9, member of the committee that brought Article 24 to the town meeting, and I'm a gravity person. I want to make that clear now. Mr. Backman brought up, I think, the point that is the number one point to the health hazard that happens when those people who are hooked up to the sewer system with a grinder pump and we have a major power outage. So that's what I'd like to get back to eventually, quickly. This is a very difficult way to form a policy. I've served on 3 committees appointed by the Board of Selectmen that have created policies in the town of Falmouth. And I have never, in my lifetime, seen it done this way. This is a very difficult process when you form a policy. And this form of dialogue that we're doing right now doesn't give for free flow of ideas and questions and research. I mean, I stand here at this podium, and I think I'm at town meeting as a member of the Rules Committee where we've been limited, to a certain amount of time. And there's other people who I know who want to speak on this, and I'm glad we've had some new faces come to the microphone. So I would hope that you create a committee. I will still wave that flag. I don't give in too easily. I'm sorry, you have so much expertise in the town of Falmouth, between the professionals, the homeowners, and everybody looks at something a little bit differently. And you all gain from that, from trying to put together a policy on a couple of public meetings. It's very difficult. We will work with the format, as I think Howard had a great presentation. We've done a lot of research. We've contacted other towns. In this whole discussion, whether it be town meeting and our first one, Selectman Moran, you're the first person to ask us a question. And both of them were answered. Okay?
I'd like to ask another.
Sure.
Have you had a chance to review the alternative 5 that Mr. Grosser presented? Because I thought it was very good. If you have, I'm curious if you have any other suggestions.
Well, correct, because you have to maintain these pumps in a power outage. Let's get right to that right now. Because the warranty, everything starts out new, you're covered for 5 years. That's great. And that's not going to be the problem that the Board of Selectmen are going to have to face in the first couple of years. But the minute we hook up, and I was down at the engineer's office today looking at the completion map, verifying with them before I spoke tonight on a few points. And yeah, they're on schedule. I'm amazed that when I looked at their maps to see how much is done, the Heights section is literally ready to, quote unquote, be hooked up. But it's where most of the grinder pumps out of the 712, I think, or 700 that are on the plan, the largest majority are on Mara Vista Avenue at the southern end that's in a floodplain. And I just wonder, I don't think anyone sitting on the board today was here in Falmouth in 1954 when we had Hurricane Carol, or 61 when we had Hurricane Donna. Mrs. Flynn, were you there for 61? Anyhow.
I was.
Okay. In 54, I witnessed boats on top of the Green Pond Bridge. So the only way the boat got there was the water was that high. So when you take a flood, a saltwater flood that comes in, it's going to cover the ground on most of these 700 grinder pumps located on the southern end of Mara Vista. Now, did you do your homework and read the email that I sent you from the Facebook page? As you can see, this happened down in the Keys. And what did they find out? That they had thousands of homeowners who had grinder pumps, that the salt water completely made the pump inoperable. So you had 1,200 or 1,800 homes that had no sewer system, that were connected with grinder pumps, and then the logistical problem of getting all these pumps fixed, replaced, you had a health hazard. What was the Falmouth, and the reason I go back to the storm, I'm not worried about the maintenance and the warranty. I'm worried when we do have a blizzard, when we lose electricity in the middle of the winter time for 3 or 4 days. We haven't experienced that lately. In my lifetime in Falmouth, we experienced power outage of Hurricane Bob. How many of us went without power for over a week? Are we going to have the Board of Health coming down and saying, you have to get out of your house because you don't have a septic system that works? What would happen right now if your next door neighbor's septic system was overflowed? You'd call the Board of Health. What's going to happen to those 700 homes that are installed with grinder pumps that don't have electricity for a week? Go out and buy a generator? It's a piece of equipment that is huge. I don't know how many of you went down when R.F. Mahoney gave the seminar to the local plumbers. I know Mr. Suso was there, I was there. They had one of the grinder pumps in the back of a pickup truck. For you 700 people that have to install this, I wish you could have seen this. It was 8 feet tall, it was in the back. It's a huge piece of equipment. As Howard said, that's going to be put on your property. You're asking the homeowner to put a piece of equipment on their personal property that they no longer get the use of because it has to have a cover, and you're saying that that's not town property. And by the way, just to get over this liability, can we put this thing to bed? Last week, a friend of mine in the Ballymead section of Falmouth had someone from the water department come into the house in their basement and install a water meter. So public employees do go on private property and perform labor. So let's put that one to bed in the liability. That's, please, okay? I'm really worried that a year from now, when the project is done, this time next year, when the project is done and these 700 pumps are ready to be hooked up, and you had a hearing tonight about someone on Main Street for July 5th. Well, in August, we start hurricane season. And God, we will get one eventually. And we find out that 50, 100, hopefully not all 700, or if the electricity's down in the town of Falmouth, then yes, it will be all 700 people. Have no septic system. We'll look at it that way. I will take the view of a health hazard that is created, that has been created, and now we have to point the finger at this board that didn't address it. As Mr. Grossman tried to showed you when he Googled it, those communities that are not proactive, that do nothing, end up getting sued by their taxpayers. Chelmsford was the last town, if I'm not mistaken, in Massachusetts, that after 17 years, they said, okay, we own them, we'll take care of them. Because in Chelmsford, they started out the way option 1 is on the board. So those are my views. If you're going to create a policy doing it this way, I think you have to really give credence. And you know what? Everything costs money. There's no free lunch. We all know that. We just came from town meeting. We're up to $123 million a year to run the town of Falmouth. Who benefits from a policy where these pumps are owned by the town, and you have a policy under emergency, so many hours, people who are disabled, families with 4 or 5 children, and you have a 30-gallon reservoir in your tank?
Okay.
And I'll finish. And I think that that's what you have to look at. It's a negative discussion. It's a very negative discussion. There's nothing in creating this policy because you're talking about all the bad things.
You haven't shown them as talking at all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Knapp.
Greg Masmanian, Precinct 2. I am a homeowner, and I will need a gravity pump. And I think a number of people have done an excellent job, and I won't reiterate what they have said. I have sent a couple letters into you folks to point out some things, and they've been discussed this evening. But one notion, and I think Ms. Moran, what you had brought up, I think was pretty important. I don't think you want to leave 700 pumps in the hands of 700 people, because you're going to have 700 flavors of how they're being taken care of. I think it needs to have a consistent, across-the-board maintenance on these things that is the responsibility of the town, okay? So it's more of a case of keeping the system intact and keeping it across the board based upon what the manufacturer says should be done, et cetera, as opposed to in the hands of 700 people, because you're going to get 700 flavors of maintenance. My biggest fear as a homeowner is that someone else's storage is going to be in my cellar, okay? And it's a pretty serious thing, okay? It's not as simple as a cleanup. And you can imagine that you mentioned renters. We have landlords in that area. Some of them do a wonderful job, some don't, but there are residents there that are full-time that I could argue the same thing. So let's try to keep something in the, look, at government is here for the best interest of the public. And the best interest of the public is to keep those things maintained by the town in a consistent manner that the manufacturer and the sewer commissioner believe should be done. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Grosser, your side is still up here, and I just have a question I want to ask you, and maybe someone else in the audience might be able to help. On the cost difference between gravity installation and the pump installation at a particular site, anybody have any guesses on what that is?
I think your own former wastewater superintendent does. I think it's in the neighborhood of $3,000. Depends a little bit on the distance that you can run narrower diameter pipe versus larger diameter pipe. But the digging is a guaranteed, the concrete's a guaranteed extra cost.
If anyone else feels that they have a number for that, I just want to get that answered, then I know other people wanted to speak.
No, this is about the cost, about your question.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Dufresne, then you.
Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2, I live on Lucerne Avenue, and I have a split system. The front of my house goes into a gravity system, but because I live on the water, I require a grinder pump for the 3 toilet facilities that go out the back. I did get an estimated cost. I think that's what we're talking about now.
Well, to Mr. Gross's point, it's the exact same location with 2 different kinds of pumps, and yours is sort of one location on one side, one location on the, which might have differences because of landscaping or distances. That was just the point I was trying to get at, but go ahead.
My estimated cost was, Mr. Chairman, ranged between $15,000 and $16,000. I bit the bullet and I had a permanent generator put in. But the people that I represent, the people that I know, my neighbors in Falmouth Heights and Mira Vista, the ones that I have a concern for, which made me be a co-sponsor to Article 24, to bring to your attention to develop a safeguard for the people that don't have the ability of purchase or the ability to empty their grinder pump or install it or whatever. I mean, we're talking about some nice gray-haired little old lady who, what the hell does she do? I've been through 4 hurricanes in my present location, and I'm fortunate. I know exactly where the tide comes in a high moon, flood tide. So I've taken the precautions for 87 Lucerne, but there are an awful lot of people that are some worried. And the policy that we're asking you people to weigh very, very carefully is to take in all of the options and cost that could be imposed on people that are very unfortunate and little or no ability to pay these extra costs. And I thank you for your consideration. It's a very, very difficult decision.
Ma'am, you want to contribute?
Well, I was going to talk about cost, excuse me. Rosemary DeVere, Precinct 2, and I did send an email. I don't know if you've received it, but it was about the cost. I asked for 3 estimates from 3 different plumbers on the list, and I've received 2, and I was shocked at the cost. One was $9,500, and the other was $8,000, so they're close to each other. My property is not convoluted. I'm about, 50 feet from the street. It's a straight shot. And whatever financial help you can give us, because that's a lot more than was mentioned in meetings that were held over the last couple of years. I think they said a max of 5, probably they quoted 2,000 to 5,000.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
Ma'am?
Mr. Jones? Just quickly?
Sure.
Whoops. An apples to apples comparison, her property is almost exactly like mine, I'm Gravity.
Okay.
My estimate is for half
So between 4 to 8.
of hers, yes.
Will you give her your plumber's?
Oh, I'm Gravity, she has a grinder pump,
Yeah,
double the cost. And
Different
that's-
plumber maybe, but we don't know.
yeah.
Ma'am?
I'm Nadine Krasnow, Precinct 5, and I have a slightly different point of view. I'm the broker-owner of Falmouth Fine Properties. I've been a realtor and a broker-owner for 37 years. I have an advanced designation. I'm a certified residential specialist, which is like a PhD in real estate. It takes a couple of years of additional coursework. It takes a certain amount of productivity. And only 3% of all realtors nationwide attain the CRS. I'm only telling you this so that you'll understand I have credentials for what I'm going to say. I was also Best of Boston Realtor once, and a couple of weeks ago, I was #1 realtor in Falmouth for closed transactions and closed and pending transactions. So I really have an acute understanding of what this means for real estate. We've been through this before with New Silver Beach. That's a combat, but Craggy Ridge has not. And there's varying ideas about how much the value of real estate has gone down in Craggy Ridge, but everybody accepts the fact that it has gone down. It's extremely difficult to sell, and the only way you can sell in there is when you offer enough of a discount that the buyer is getting a significantly better house for significantly less money. We know about the lawsuits that we have ongoing because of that. With 700 homeowners, and as Howard mentioned, the exact same house with everything the same, I disagree with his 10%. I think that 10% doesn't really make a difference to a buyer. You really have to get to 20 to 25% to make enough of a difference that someone will take on an issue. Realtors are going to have to disclose this. Buyers have choices. When they have a choice, why would they buy something that is coming with built-in issues, multiple issues, not only the value of their home, which really for many people is the greatest part of their portfolio, it's really significant, but then there's all the other additional issues as well. Why would they buy that house when they can buy any other house? So it's really going to be a problem. I can tell you, I don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to have lawsuits. We're going to have lawsuits over diminished value. We're going to have lawsuits when maybe an elderly homeowner who couldn't afford a generator loses electricity and their oxygen goes off. What if they die? So I really am asking you to consider this with my heart and soul so carefully as we move forward. Let's not repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past. We've made them, we've learned from them, please let's not make them again.
Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I'd like to just state again that anybody who has a Title V tank, there's nothing in the plumbing code that says they have to take one of these, and they'd be better off not to. There's also the option of using your Title V tank as an overflow as opposed to using it as a pump chamber, which makes less sense, but it's still an option. But the biggest thing I want you to consider is in the last census, Mara Vista, as I've stated before, is the poorest peninsula in Falmouth. This is because when you remove all the summer homes, the people who don't file their taxes here, and I know I have property there and I have plenty of neighbors, I know these people, it's the majority of the population are retired people on a fixed income in two-bedroom homes. I mean, we live in a fairly affluent community, comparatively speaking, but we've all heard the horror stories of seniors who make the decision between buying their medicine and buying their food. Picture that they throw in this third variable, which is having to pay to maintain their grinder pump. What are they going to cut out to do it? I mean, it's become a habit in this town to raise our property taxes every year to the state maximum of 2.5%. That's 25% in 10 years. Throwing this cost on top of everything else that seniors have to deal with is an incredible disservice to our senior community. And I think that that should be considered first and foremost, because these problems are inevitable. And also, I didn't speak to the man myself, but when Howard and Ron were doing their studies, they spoke to the sewer superintendent in Marion. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 of these things, and he told Ron that he spends 60% of his time on issues relative to grinder pumps. They're your grinder pumps. You should keep them. Thank you.
Anyone else? John? Joe?
Hi, my name is Joe Blood. I'm from Precinct 2. Thank you very much. I want to speak to two things. The thing that Mr. Finneran just spoke about. I have personally spoken to a very large number of the residents in the Little Pond Sewer area. I've come across 4 individuals that I can think of right now who are literally deciding between eating and heating. One gentleman, and we can speak about this in a private kind of situation, one gentleman literally is heating his house with 20-gallon tanks of Blue Rhinos. I mean, that's literally how he heats his house. Another gentleman is taking care of he's very elderly, and he's taking care of a very elderly, sick wife. These people may need, this may be a bigger picture. We may need to get more of the town services involved. Okay, but let's go back to what we're talking about right here. Okay. So there's a huge installation cost. I'm personally doing installations, so I know the costs, okay? So I think there should be some mechanism for people at a certain either income level or age level or a combination of both, or, I'll leave that up to other people. It's just really heart-wrenching to come across these people. So that's point number one. So just kind of along with what other people have spoken about. In terms of the pumps themselves, I think that the installation of the pump system versus the gravity system is more expensive. I mean, it's obvious that that's the case. I think that Howard's analysis, which was, side by side, probably, we should get together and kind of talk about that, because I can, talk to you about pricing and so on and so forth. If you're going to get involved in more of the policy side of the equation, I'm happy to do that on a proprietary basis with you. But I agree with everything that people have said, and I guess the main point is, well, the 2 points I'd like to make is there is definitely a difference between the grinder pumps and gravity, and there is a population out there that that I have personally met that is going to have some difficulty with the installation, the cost of the installation. So that's it.
And that cost, I think, is, those people you're talking about are going to be suffering, whether it's grinder pump or
Right, I
gravity fed.
think
It's still, and that's, in some ways, that's not a grinder
No,
pump policy, that's a,
And that's why I brought up not to interrupt you, that's why I brought up, there may be more services that need to be brought to bear with those individuals.
Absolutely.
Versus, but this is definitely creates another level of expense for these people that they are just not prepared for. They're just not prepared for. No, anyway.
Anybody else? Yes, sir?
Bob Spiro, Precinct 3. I live on Mara Vista. I'm going to be having a grinder pump put in. One of the questions that I have is, have they decided as to what size pump, model number, that they're going to use? And are they going to be different sizes as to where you are insofar as Falmouth, so far as Mara Vista goes? If you're down near the water, or you're up near where the transfer station is going to be. And another thought that I had is, if there's a possibility for the people that have the grinder pumps to be able to maintain their current system and use a valve, so if there's a power failure, the valve could be activated to go to the septic system that's there now with a minimum amount of usage that would probably not affect the ecosystem.
The second question I can answer definitively, that will not be allowed. One of the conditions of having all this done is it has to be inspected and the current system has to be closed off. If we're talking about worried about abuse on the grinder pumps, I would be much more worried about abuse of, oh, I'm just going to shut off that grinder pump and use my old septic system and we'll be back where we are. The first question, I think I can answer, but Amy could confirm that it is one size pump.
One size pump.
Okay. Do we have a model number?
I don't.
It's HD071. It's on the, I can get it.
Why don't you meet with that gentleman, Amy, and you can update him.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? First question I'd like to ask this board, does this board want to, and I guess a little preamble on the option of starting a policy committee to come up with a policy. My argument against it has been, to do so, we have to describe the committee, we have to advertise it, we have to post it for 2 weeks, we then have to hold interviews, and we will not get this policy committee started for at least 4 or 5 weeks. And I would rather have the policy in place. Maybe it's rushing it, and then that group would have to have a meeting, open meetings, and I think a number of them to move forward. But that's certainly something we can discuss because it's been proposed a number of times.
Well, perhaps if the town manager just appointed a working group, we wouldn't have to go through all that. And, I mean, we could suggest people. The public could suggest people that ought to be on it, but it could be just a working group because it would have a short-term life. It wouldn't be, a permanent committee. It would be a group of people that would have a specific responsibility to get it done and communicate it. So that might be a better option.
I would also support Chairman Flynn's idea in terms of a working group, because I think the folks, certainly Howard, Joe, several people in the audience have really done a tremendous amount of groundwork, and so there is already foundational level of research and proposed policies in addition to the other options that we have up there. And I think that the, if there can be a set time limit by which the recommendation needs to be made to the town manager, 3 weeks, I don't think we would lose much time, and yet the board would get a tremendous amount of additional assistance in making what I think is a very important policy decision, not only for now in all of the taxpayers, but also going forward in terms of any other water-related projects we have in terms of precedents that we're going to have to use this information as well. So I'd support that suggestion.
Any discussion on options 1 through 5? Do we want to have any dialogue about among the board right now?
I would prefer that limited time of getting some consolidated advice from a working group in addition to what we already have. I think that would bring us much further up the court in terms of being able to make such an important policy decision and to get it right the first time as much as possible.
I would be inclined to at least let this group know that I feel that the town needs to take some responsibility for maintaining them. The ownership, I may disagree, but I'll wait to hear from the committee. But I do think, in some ways, I've been hearing from them saying, you aren't listening, and I at least want to say, no, we get it. And I think that there is some responsibility the town needs to take.
The other thing I wanted to add was that there be a clear mission statement for this working group. That it be a very simple statement, and that there be certain objectives or statements of activity or action that we would expect them to review and make recommendations.
Once we get into that too much, it isn't a town manager appointed working group.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not saying we do that, the town manager does that.
Right, but too much, we can't actually give him that direction, otherwise it actually becomes a selectman authorized committee. So it's up to him to do what he wants. If we want to do it, then it becomes a selectman appointed group. Tim?
Well, I don't think we really have enough information in terms of the cost associated with any of these options, the infrastructure that's going to be required, and the services, if you will, in order to be able to implement them. So I am not prepared to make a decision on how we should go forward on any of them, because I think there's got to be a lot more homework done as to what's required to make any of those options actually work and how it's going to get paid for. So I don't feel that I'm in a position to be able to make any kind of decisions. We've got a lot more groundwork to actually lay out. If the town is going to pick up more of the maintenance costs and responsibilities for these pumps.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to, or perhaps Ms. Lynn would like to make a motion about the working group.
Well, I would make a motion that the town manager appoint a working group, and with a clear expectation of the work of the group, what they're expected to do, and what their timeline is, and when they should have a report back to the town manager.
But that's in the form of a recommendation.
No, that's part of my motion. Or maybe I'll just make the motion just simply as to direct the town manager to form a working group to do what? You have to have a mission, you know, and you can do it in one sentence. The mission is to take a look at the issue of grinder pumps and forwards recommendations based on their knowledge and their experience and their discussions to the town manager on what actions the town might take. Something like that. I mean, I'm just off the top of my head. That's what I would do if I were in the working group. Give me a mission, tell me what you want me to look at the issue, you want me to get all the information together and come back with some recommendations as what would work best for the people who are going to have to use them and for the town.
Andy?
Simple.
I'll second.
He seconded it, so.
You know, Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2. We don't want to put the pressure on the Board of Selectmen, but you people are the policy setters. And if you want to set a policy based on somewhat of what things you heard here tonight, that's your decision. You're the policy setters of the town of Falmouth. He manages the town of Falmouth after you set the policy. So if you want to form a working group or a committee, we still have time. I mean, I hope, probably another year and a half before everybody has to empty their septic tanks and whatnot. So we do have time, you people have time, to get the best minds in town, from health board, legal, engineers, to set a policy that will protect the people of the town of Falmouth on a system that was designed and accepted by the town of Falmouth. Now, these people that spoke here tonight are not the ones that designed this system. And when the system was being designed, we saved a few bucks by not building a couple of lift stations, but the financial impact fell on some very unfortunate people not without the ability to bear the burden. So my comment is the Board of Selectmen set the policies of the town of Falmouth, and this is not a no-fix situation. We have a sewer system that's being constructed right now with probably a completion date of another year. So we still have time to put some people together to either accept portions or add to what was presented here tonight.
Okay.
The four of us that sponsored Article 24 felt that it was not covered in the original acceptance of the sewer system. We'd like to see you people make this decision.
Okay. Megan?
Just to the issue that Mary Pat was raising about what we're looking for, I think it's really simple. We're just looking to create, whether it's a working group for the simplicity of a working group, but to assess the available options pertaining to the sewering project. And I think that's what's already started. Folks are assessing it. I don't think we have to make it more complicated. They're assessing the options that are available, and then they'll present whatever their information is on that assessment to town manager or to the Board of Selectmen. So I think it's just a simple, that work has already started, so we're not starting from scratch again. And then if it's a working group, whomever applies or whomever the town manager thinks is appropriate, those individuals would be appointed to that working group. So I don't think it has to be too complicated.
Yeah, with that.
Larry Backman, Precinct 3. What has become very clear to me just listening tonight is no one knows what the cost of this is. And as Andy did, you as selectmen can't possibly put your signature, your name to something if you don't understand the costs. I would argue very strongly that part of this committee, this working group, this whatever, is to cost out the two different options in half a dozen different sites and fully understand that. I've run engineering projects all my life, and I've never heard of an engineering project where someone doesn't know the costs before they implement policy. So, when we talk about lawsuits, when we talk about signing names to things, I think that it's inherent on you to fully understand those costs before you sign any policies.
Joe?
Mrs. Flynn, I think the areas that you want to concentrate on, which you're trying to come up with, are basically three, and as Mr. Backman just said, is the maintenance, operation, the ownership, the maintenance, and the emergency power outages. And as Mr. Backman just said, with related costs. But those are basically the three areas that you want to look at from what we did, to keep it simple.
We have a motion and a second, I believe.
We do.
Yes.
To recommend, suggest to the town manager that he create a working group looking into this. I
Amy
guess
has her.
Amy, Joe?
Amy.
Amy Lowell, I'm the town's acting wastewater superintendent. I just wanted to make a quick clarification. The town is planning on sending out a notice within the next couple of weeks, in fact, to make it known to the Falmouth Heights area that the sewer system in Falmouth Heights is ready for connections and that people could begin applying to connect. So there have been statements that we had a year or more before that process began, and that's not the case for half of this area.
Thank you.
Joe?
Joe Blood, Precinct 2. So follow-on question, would the working group delay the Falmouth Heights installation, connections, so on and so forth? I have a number of people whose systems are on the edge of, they would like to hook up. Let's put it that way.
Mr. Jack will be making a further report in 2 weeks. I'm fairly certain, because I talked to him about it 3 days ago, that there are a bunch of places that can hook up very, very soon. We are not going to force anyone to hook up now if they don't want to. We're going to give them some time. The law had been in the past that you had 30 or 60 days, and he is not planning to enforce that because he wants to give the timetable as much leeway as possible. Once the entire program is in place, that timetable will be a little bit more abbreviated, but until that is, he will not be enforcing any immediate hookups. So there will be some time, but there also will be some people who may choose to hook up within the next month, even though they don't know what the ramifications of a policy might be.
All right, so let me follow up on that. So there are certain areas of Falmouth Heights that are good to go. Okay. Phase 1, Falmouth Heights, whatever. And I understand that, Alphonse Street, there's a lifting station being built up there, and so that T-ticket area is a different animal than, let's call it the beach community, okay? So how do the well, I guess maybe Amy's going to send out a letter, but how do the homeowners find out who's available to hook up? How do the contractors find out who's available to hook up or not hook up? That kind of thing. So.
That will be in the letter. That will also be in Mr. Jack's presentation. That information will be.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
2
great.
weeks.
Okay, in 2 weeks, okay, great, thank you.
I wanted to know, could that be available on the town website, so if people could check and plan?
Yes. Excuse me. The entire Falmouth Heights area that is within the little sewer pond, I can say it, Little Pond Sewer Service Area will be was intended to be available for connection within the next, we were going to send out the letter in the next couple of weeks. So that's all of the properties within the Falmouth Heights area south of Spring Bars Road. So not including Spring Bars Road, but all the properties south of it. There are 3 additional on Route 28 near the Jones Road intersection.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second about the working committee. I guess I'd like to put a little bit of a provision in it that provided the town council says we can do this.
That goes without saying.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we can actually direct them to, otherwise, whether it's going to be a selectment committee. And as it's been pointed out, we don't have to rush it. I was trying to resolve this issue, but I guess we don't. There is not the feeling from the people involved that they care about being done that quickly. So
I totally disagree. Amy just told us that we're sending a notice out about people being able to hook up, and we're doing it imminently. And that's why when I discussed the motion that Ms. Flynn had made, my premise was that there needed to be the questions that the selectmen still need to know answered within the next couple of weeks, or in 2 or 3 weeks, a short period. We've just been discussing this for a year. We've had a lot of information come forward. We've had several public forums. We've had it on our agenda several times, and there are still some questions that need to be answered. We, in the selectmen, need to be very clear what information we require and make that decision expeditiously and as carefully as possible.
okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, if I may, just because it's opportune, since I won't be a selectman, and after the next couple of weeks, I'll be the first one to volunteer for the working group, just in case anybody cares.
I would
You don't
actually-
have to appoint me, but I'm willing to serve.
I actually hope that you're voting on the policy.
Huh?
I would actually hope that this working group gets
Yeah.
quickly enough, makes a recommendation, and you actually vote on the policy and serve on that committee.
I was just going to say you were off the hook.
We're moving, yes, sir? We've made our motion.
Will there be any I'm sorry. Grant Walker, Precinct 3. My question is, will there be any opportunity for public input and for the public to receive information from this working group prior to them submitting their recommendation?
what I would suggest, what I would imagine would happen is that some of the people most vociferous tonight may be asked to be on the committee, and you could reach to them.
She's on it,
Or
I don't want to be on
one of the selectmen, I imagine, will also be on it. You could reach out to us as a group saying, how can I get my thoughts to this committee? But a working group will not necessarily will not be scheduling and posting public meetings. That's a difference about a working group, is that they will not be under the open meeting law. So if you want to get connected to them, ask one of us and we can help you get to them. Mr. Grosser?
Just quickly, if it is a working group, I understand it's not required by open meeting law to post, but there's no rule against posting.
Absolutely not.
So invite everybody.
Well, and if we're considering the change of the policy, then there will be an opportunity for public.
It certainly will be coming back here.
Exactly. So there will be an open hearing when that working group reports back to us for all kinds of questions to be asked.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we rubber stamp with exactly what they tell us. We'll try. All right, we'd like to move on. Discussion of the proposed bikeway plan.
Thank you.
This bikeway plan was presented to us in the planning board at a joint meeting on our Saturday meeting about a month and a half ago. And I just want to put it on our agenda to, if we needed to discuss it, or if we just want to say, yep, we're in favor of moving forward and investigating as best we can. Ms. Moran?
I think that it's very important for a myriad of reasons. Climate change, our public health, that we move forward with the proposed bikeway plan. I think the bikeway plan has really been expertly developed. Cape Cod Commission has been involved. There's been a lot of outreach, and I think the work has been tremendous. I do want to make one request of the committee, which I think they're already sensitive to, and that request, should I whistle?
Yeah, I would just wait, hold on.
So the request I have for the Bikeways Committee is I presented, in fact, the town manager was there as well at a veterans event. Joe Quintolani received an award for his work with veterans this past weekend. And there was an admiral who was in front in the audience who made a specific request to me. I would say he's probably in his 80s, and he said that he has written the Bikeways Committee a couple of times about people on bikes being cognizant of people walking. And because he feels that sometimes there are certain bikers, just like, there are certain runners or other people who perhaps don't pay attention and have sufficient consideration for pedestrians. And this admiral said he had been just about knocked over one day trying to walk the bike path. So I would appreciate if the Bikeways Committee gave even further attention and response to the concerns of pedestrians with respect to the bikeways. So that would be my further request.
One of the things I did appreciate is in their E's, one of them was education, and they were very clear to say not only educating drivers, but also the bicyclists to the way that the three modals have to work together of walking, biking, and driving.
I did notice that. I appreciated that.
And one of the things that I also, in the Bikeways plan, while it does recommend, sometimes that there be a path specifically devoted towards walking and biking, that it also has had some alternatives, that sometimes you're going to have bike lanes, other places you're going to have sharrows. And it did give flexibility within the bikeway plan to do what's going to be best for certain parts of town. I mean, Main Street's always going to be a problem. I don't know how you're ever going to create a great biking down Main Street of Falmouth, but other parts of Falmouth, there were some options available.
Yeah. I think this really does need to be elevated up to the point of visibility because, we're talking about replacing water mains down Main Street. We need to take this kind of transportation into consideration as well. And you talk about maybe this section of Main Street up to Gifford Street, but there's the option to go down Catherine Lee Bates. So there are logical ways to kind of route bicyclists past those areas where the road is just too narrow to really accommodate all kinds of traffic, pedestrian, vehicle, and bicycle. So But I think the important thing is that this bike plan actually brings it up to visibility, and it will be considered whenever there are improvements that are made to roads, whether they be for, water and gas and communications infrastructure, sewage, obviously, as well. So I think that's the importance of this bike plan, and taking it seriously so that as the town evolves, we're including more and more options for people to use bicycles for transportation.
So would you make a motion to approve the bikeways plan as proposed to us?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. I'm sure Scott will be thrilled, and they will keep pushing forward. Next is the presentation discussion on replacement of town voting machines. Mr. Palmer. Again, this is one of those oddities of that we have to vote this to be able to do this.
Michael Palmer, Town Clerk. I can answer questions, give you a summary. There's a 3-minute YouTube video I can show. It's at your pleasure.
I'd rather, for expediency, just like to know your impression of the people at town meeting who looked at the machines and what their questions were, what they thought.
Different issue.
This is the...
That's electronic voting for town
Oh,
meeting.
sorry,
These are the machines we're
misunderstood.
going to use for our annual and state and presidential elections.
Okay,
The old voting machines we had have been...
So just a quick summary then. In November, town meeting appropriated $73,000 for the purchase of new voting equipment to be used at our elections. The equipment we're using now was purchased in 1996, I believe. So over 20 years ago. They're not manufacturing the equipment anymore, so if something breaks, they're cannibalizing other towns that don't use them anymore to repair our equipment. Most computer equipment doesn't last more than 20 years anyhow. So town meeting voted to purchase new. We set out an invitation to bid, and there are 2 companies that produce a voting tabulator that's certified by the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office. The low bidder was called ImageCast, and we awarded the contract to them. The Secretary of the Commonwealth requires that the Board of Selectmen take a vote at least 120 days prior to the use of the new machines to discontinue the equipment we're using now and start using the equipment that we will use. Now this, again, not for this annual election in May 17th, because we wouldn't meet the 120-day criteria, but this will be for the Thursday, yes, I make that note. The presidential primary is on a Thursday in September, not the presidential primary, the state primary, we elect our state officials, is a Thursday in September, and that would be the first election we would use the equipment for, and then obviously moving forward with that for all elections after that point.
Is that
we
the
just
first
need a vote to
Thursday?
discontinue in.
Is that the first Thursday certainly the first Thursday I've ever heard of us having an election?
It's the first that I can recall in the town of Falmouth, and it has to do with the amount of time required to get overseas absentee ballots available to our military personnel. And there's a federal requirement for a certain number of days between elections to have that happen. And if we went to Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday after Labor Day, in order to meet the required numbers of days. So they moved it to Thursday, which was the latest they could go and still meet the federal requirement.
And we won't have any difficulty with our voting places, or polling places, because of a Thursday date instead of a Tuesday date?
I've been in contact with all of them, and they're aware of it. I will, again, just to make sure that they are aware.
Not that that's part of this issue, but Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I was wondering, Michael, whether you could describe the voters' experience in voting with this new equipment, and also, from my perspective, how those votes will be tallied and communicated to your office for, official release.
You're probably not going to notice any difference between the equipment we use now and what we will be using. The main difference is it's new equipment, obviously. It's not 20 years old. There will be a larger LCD screen, which gives some directions to voters, which there's a little one on there right now. I know people are aware they can get the voter count off it, but there'll be a little bit bigger screen if someone overvotes or makes a mistake on the ballot. It will actually give an explanation. And then there's some buttons under there that says either cast your vote or return your ballot to get another ballot. If it casts your ballot, where you made the errors on the ballot will be counted as a blank, but it'll count all the other votes that you have made on the ballot. So there's a little bit easier viewing screen to view the explanation of what the problem was with the ballot. Other than that, you're still going to take the ballot to the ballot box, fill in the ovals, bring it over, put it into an optical reading machine. It's going to read it the same way. And then, again, the results come back to town hall the same way with a different type of memory card. It's not the memory card we're using now, but it's more advanced technology.
So, I'll just, because I hope it's clarifying for everybody, but when you say the ballot, you might have another chance at the ballot, it's after you push it into the machine, and it will display whether it's read it correctly or whether it perceives there might be an error, and it would give you an opportunity to take your ballot back and present a new ballot.
Well, the machines actually do that now. This machine is going to have a bigger screen to explain what the issue was. So law allows for 3 ballots, 3 strikes you're out. If you make a mistake on 3 ballots, then we have to override the machine to count it, and we'd count all the ones that were voted correctly. But that's a common issue to have spoiled ballots. And the machines we have now do the same thing. These are just going to be, the explanation for what had happened is going to be a little bit easier to understand with the new voting machine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make the motion that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 54, Section 34, I move to discontinue the use of the AccuVote OS voting tabulator and replace it with the ImageCast voting tabulator to be used starting with the Thursday, September 8, 2016 Massachusetts state primary and all elections moving forward.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is the summary of the town manager evaluation. You should have all received that in your packet, and I think you'd actually received about a week ago for any changes or edits. It's a little bit of a weird timetable on the goals setting because we actually did his last evaluation review probably in October or November of this past year, and I think set goals that were 12-month goals. And so most of the goals that we checked off are in progress, but likely to be done in the next 3 or 4 months. This is now, as a summary, is a public document. Are there any comments people would like to make about it?
I appreciate what you said because I do think the timing of things was a little bit skewed and so that there were limitations on items that there was substantial progress on. We weren't really able to say were completed. In other words, I guess I would make a pitch for the evaluation maybe to be reviewed at some point so it's a little more helpful and not as stringent. And so the board would have the opportunity to be more specific about positive results. That's an aside. Otherwise, I really want to, positively say to the town manager, certainly all of the projects that are ongoing are moving in a positive direction. I think that was partly what was validated by the positive town meeting that we so recently had. And really specific instances such as file storage at the Gus Canty Center. I know that there was a substantial amount of outreach by the town manager with the committee that really is intricately involved with that building. And I think there was a lot of outreach, direct communication, and that the town manager made a decision to change his original goals. And, it's very difficult to find space in town buildings, and you have to look at every single one. So I just really think that was one instance where the town manager did an admirable job of working with the community, listening to the community leaders who are knowledgeable with that issue, and then, taking that information and looking at alternatives. The fact that still isn't resolved shows that it's a difficult problem, but I appreciated that work in particular.
And to frame our future discussion, what I would suggest is that we schedule, sort of in concrete, that the next evaluation will be done in October without setting new goals. Let the goals stand as they are because they were 12-month goals, and be more diligent about, it's always October. That we start the process in October, wrap it up in November. That way, it's a few months after the selectmen have set their strategic goals. That can then be part of it. And then I think we need to do it every year. And I think that would be the appropriate timing. One of the things that is in his contract is when we do his review, is we're also supposed to consider what kind of, do we want to consider a merit pay? In addition, do we want to extend his contract? The contract does end right now in 2019, and we could consider extending it. And we could also consider offering a merit pay increase in response to the evaluation. So those are the other issues that are raised for us to discuss. Mr. Patterson?
I'm a little troubled by the fact that we're getting hung up by the fact that some of these goals don't get done in 1 year. I mean, the nature of these goals are that they take a long time to unfold, and there are unforeseen things that are going to actually cause them to be extended. I mean, plans are plans. That's your hope that you're going to get someplace at some point. But the fact of the matter is we're dealing with complicated issues that require decisions by multiple people. And it's not, I don't think, it's an unfair expectation on our part. I have no problem with in progress, quite honestly, if there's a valid reason why this is going to extend. And some of these goals, I think, are going to be 2 or 3 year goals anyway, and will only be in process by their very nature. They're just too complicated to get done in 1 year segments, if you will. So I'm bothered by the fact that we're hung up about this, because I think in process, or in progress, is a perfectly valid evaluation.
So my point was to make that really formal, that in process is that there's no penalizing for that. So we're in agreement.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, another option would be too, if you know it can't be accomplished in a year, but it's more of a long-term goal, is what would be the steps that would show that the goal is being accomplished? Like in the first year, you would do A, in the second year, you would do B, and in the third year, C, and then that accomplishes the total goal. Because you're right, some of them just cannot be done in a whole year.
Right.
And some may take 10 years, in a sense.
I don't think we need to put in the town manager's.
No,
that
I think that
specific
the
goals.
town
I think-
manager should do that, should set those goals and say, what are the pieces to it and how long will it take?
And I would think he probably does, but doesn't put it necessarily in writing for us, but has worked out his timetable to get them done. And the only reason I'm saying it, Sam, is that actually 4 or 5 of them, I thought, if we were doing this in September, a bunch of them would be complete. It was just because we weren't thinking it as either a 1 year goal or even 2. I mean, we weren't thinking it as a 6-month goal. We were thinking as a 1 or 2 year or longer.
Yeah. And one other comment, this form that we're using this year is different from last year's form. And the
only thing that's different is that the number scale gives you a little bit more variety as opposed to, the other thing I think was.
That's what I'm actually focusing on, because I think the way it's scaled is inappropriate.
Okay.
I think, to have meets expectation is 5 and always exceeds expectation is 10 is not really, I think, a reasonable scale, numerical scale. And this has nothing to do with Julian's performance, but just my problem with the form itself and the scale, the way it's structured. I mean, I would look toward what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is using for evaluating teachers and administrators, and come up with a kind of a standard that's used across Massachusetts, that's been thought about. I was kind of irritated by the fact that this was brought up this way, and we never actually had a chance to decide whether this is the form that we want to take. Again, this has nothing to do with Julian.
No, it has to do with me. I was the one who came up with it.
Okay, but I'm not comfortable, because it definitely skews it by the very nature of how you've distributed the rate, the point category for the various ratings. So I would like to see us go back and revisit this, but that's immaterial.
Well, maybe that's a discussion you and I can have and bring back to the board for a vote in September before we do that.
Okay.
I was troubled by having only 3 choices last time, when it was either, I think it was exceeds expectations, somewhat ambivalent, and doesn't do any work. And those were the 3 choices we had. And
I think there are options that would make us more comfortable,
I
and give
agree.
a more graduated way of evaluating each of the criteria.
I agree. So we can come back to that. So, would you, the board like to consider a merit raise at this time for Mr. Suso?
Well, let me ask a naive question, I guess, and that's, we have a model for cost of living increases. You're talking about something that's beyond that, right?
Yep.
Now, because I know that having worked on the school committee, we didn't have an automatic cost of living increase for the superintendent. We considered their salary increase every year as a combination of merit and cost of living. And so I'm not sure how this board has actually treated that in the past, and that's a question.
It's in the contract. It's contract language about a COLA every year.
Okay.
So
The
if
COLA,
if
yes.
you want to
So that's-
revise the contract, you could eliminate.
Well, the
And
COLA is
you could
different.
negotiate
The
an
cost of-
elimination of that and have a different type of increase.
Well, most of the employees in Falmouth either get a COLA and also are eligible for some kind of step increase. And our managers are not. Our managers are the ones who have reached the top of the steps or not. And so those have been built in their contract for them to be considered for a merit pay raise upon when they get evaluated. When Mr. Suso originally was hired, he was hired on a sort of a probationary period, at which point after, I think, a year and a half, it was considered, would we give him the raise that was actually in his initial contract? And it was voted that we would. And then his contract says, upon any time we do an evaluation review, that we have the option of awarding a merit raise.
I would be more comfortable maybe revisiting this at the next agenda when we have some parameters. I have no
I agree.
basis upon which to make a comparative analysis, but I think that it should be fully considered, and that information would be helpful, just in terms of like size municipal, whether it's towns or, Cape-wide, off Cape. I mean, I would just like some
I'll talk to Denise and see if we can get some numbers like that
historical
together.
analysis and also some more contract information in terms of any specific things to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, I very much agree with that, and it's just because, it depends on how generous the town was when they hired the individual, and, so they're starting off at a higher level. I'm always aware of the fact that, let's say a 2% raise for somebody who's relatively low on the salary scale is a modest increase, but a 2% raise for somebody well up on the salary scale is a rather large absolute increase, right? And I think the whole issue of fairness needs to come in, so I would like to have a little bit more background information so we can make an equitable kind of recommendation, right?
Okay.
And if we could, just to add to that, just to repeat the packet of evaluation information along with that same information would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the request for a sign variance for off-premises sign for the Falmouth Rotary Club.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's appropriate for us to thank our town manager for his
Yes.
service. I feel like we've been kind of talking all around it, but this
We're
was
here.
a very positive,
I thought,
it was a positive result, and I've really enjoyed working with Julian as a selectman. I think he's fair and honest and always open to considering any of the issues that I raise and the concerns I raise. And I think that the town is well-served with our current town manager. If I could speak for myself, but I think I'm also speaking for the way this evaluation came out as well.
I appreciate you putting us back on track with that.
And if I might thank all the members of the board, it's an honor and a privilege to serve you. So thank you for your evaluation and all the helpful input, and it allows me to fine-tune and adjust, which is critical for my continuing to be effective on your behalf. So thank you for all the positive, constructive comments, and I appreciate the whole process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I commend you all on being such excellent teachers, because it was not just reports saying great, 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 great. It was saying, like this, wish you could work on that, and I actually thought that the insights you were able to give to Julian about what things might work better, while at the same time congratulatory. I thought were very, very helpful.
I hope that we can continue to do evaluations like that, understood that it's like, okay, let's give the positive side, but then let's think in terms of continuous improvement, and where could you strive to do a little bit more effective job, right? And maybe you should look at doing this a little bit differently the next time, you know. So I think we need to see evaluations as a constructive tool. That's the way I use them as an engineering supervisor, and I know that's the way the school program now is set up. It's all designed to help teachers and administrators grow to be more effective at doing what they do. So I hope we see these tools that way, and not just a slap on the back, but a constructive way of feeding back to our town manager.
Okay. So we have a request for off-premises sign from the Falmouth Rotary Club for their pancake breakfast. They'd like to place 4 sandwich-type signs at TD Bank, at 7-Eleven store at Scranton Avenue, the Masonic Lodge at 160 Main Street, and the parking lot opposite Coffee Obsession. And then, remember, they do have permission from these places.
They do, and this is sort of an annual event, I think, that they've been doing. I just want to mention that it's at the Masonic Lodge, 160 Main Street, on Saturday, June 11th, from 8 a.m. to noon.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. And next item is the discussion of the direction for the senior center consultant, helping us to analyze the sites. You have a handout that's been prepared by Mrs. Harper and Mr. Suso about what questions we should be asking our consultant. And I was very impressed with the how extensive the analysis questions were, and just wanted, I guess, a little reassurance that we weren't going over budget by asking quite this detailed, particularly on some of the soil and topographical stuff. I know those are questions that are going to be answered by the design people anyway, but you feel that we can do that within the budget of?
We think that we can, and then we also think that our view is that this is critical information for you, so that what's most important is that you have sufficient information to make a good informed decision. And we want to bring those facts to you.
I just want to note that if you look at both of those, both the soil study and the topographic information, it's using existing information.
Okay.
So it's initial analysis, which is time, consultant time, but it's not developing new data.
Okay, right, great.
No question.
Yep, Sam?
I see Joe Bishop is here. Has that original site committee been asked to comment on this, to see if there's anything that could be added or should be added from their perspective, since they've kind of been through this process?
Well, they disbanded, so I don't
Okay,
think we
but
have asked the committee itself.
Okay, well, perhaps some of the key members then could be asked to just comment on this, but I agree with you, Doug, that this is a pretty comprehensive list of things that we should be looking at, and I think it serves the citizens well for us to ask these questions and go back and take a look at them.
Pat?
I just wanted to say that since this project is going to be owned by the next board, that I'm not going to get too detailed in some of my comments. I have said in the past about how you mesh and merge both the senior programs and the community programs, not to keep them in silos, but find ways in which to, make programs available to both seniors and the community in some way. I think you have to think about the whole thing and not just separately. So that's what I will leave you with.
We do have 3 sites that have been suggested. One is the northwest area, what's called High School Site 4, as further investigation. The other site is a school administration site, and the other are other possible sites on the high school, for instance, on the field hockey field, or we talked for a while about maybe using the tennis courts as a place to build a building, and so those are 3 that I mentioned here. Do we want to consider any others? Certainly we're hearing a lot of people in the public saying, why aren't you going to Gus Canty? It's a community center, why doesn't that happen? one piece of information that really struck home with me is that is one of the busiest places in the town during the summer. And to have that place have to shut down as a senior center because of the activity of the kids that are there, I think convinced me, I just don't see how that we can do Commodores baseball, seniors, and the community students or the children community center in that one spot for the 3 months that we actually have our busiest senior population. And so when people keep putting that forward, that's, for me, so I just don't see how that can work in that site. I know other people have also suggested we should be looking at the Nimrod. And I do personally feel that geographic area is a nice place, but it doesn't have the acreage that we've been told we need. And we would then be adding whatever the $1 million cost it is to renovate a historic building, which we know we would have to do because it is a building we don't want to lose. And so those are two I know people out there in the public said, hey, you should be thinking those. And I just want to let people know we have thought them, the committee thought them. Are there others that you think we should be throwing into the mix? Sue?
I just wanted to add to what you said, because I've heard the same suggestions, but I've vetted them with the Jim Biera, the chair of the committee, and he has a lot of information on the focus of the committee, looking at sufficient outdoor space for options as well, and that's not offered by the Gus Canty Center, and that was a very important part of their programming that they're looking at. So that's just an additional comment to what you already said, but I just kind of want to clarify that part of our review with respect to the high school, which was the favored site through all the community listening times that we had, that we review options 2, 3, and 4. I think that's what you just said, but I want to be sure that that was included.
The only option at the high school that we really have all given up on was where the option that was putting the senior center on the current softball field. That just wasn't going to work out with all the logistics, but the other ones are still on the table.
And just to add one last thing, on the far high school site, that the topography for the road that the town would have to build would be reviewed. I commented about that earlier, and I think there were a few issues that were going to be reviewed in that regard. Heather has
I want to clarify, because it doesn't say anything about the tennis courts on here. It said that what this high school site's tonight is fine, but it doesn't say that. High school, Giver Street Extension, field hockey field, high school Brick Kiln Road soccer field site. Is the board asking to include an additional look at the tennis court? Because that's a whole different set of circumstances in terms of relocating the tennis facility. So if that's what you'd like, we need to say that.
Right, so that's sort of my point, that, and in fact, I had a conversation with the chair in which we were talking about the fact that it's very important to review the high school site options 2, 3, and 4. And I thought that's also what the chair requested, and I wanted to be sure that that was understood in the proposal.
Well, when I had mentioned the field, the tennis courts, that it wasn't any of the 2, 3, and 4. I can't remember the exact numbers. I believe 4 was in the northwest corner, 3 was on the field hockey field, 2 was on the soccer field. There was also sort of an option 2C or something, which is, wait, what if we use the tennis courts and put the building right there and then put the tennis courts behind the high school, because tennis courts don't need grass to grow, and you might be able to, it may be a less expensive thing to put in just a leveling area for a tennis court. And I don't know if we want to throw that back into the mix or not. I wasn't thrilled with it because it then actually puts the senior center between the high school and the field hockey field, and sort of creates more of a jigsaw puzzle view. It does limit where they can go outside, and you're going to have the seniors walk by. So I was not thrilled with that as an option. So.
I agree. I'd be disinclined to go with an additional site. I think if we stick with our current options 2, 3, and 4, we're covering it.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that when we say 2, 3, and 4, I don't remember the numbers, but we're talking about the the soccer field, the field hockey field, and the vacant area up by Old Campus Drive.
Correct.
And with the Old Campus Drive route, I know building the road has some issues. I would still hope that we might be able to pursue, is there any way that we actually could get access off of Old Campus Drive? If you drive there, it's a very short little driveway you need to build. I know it's through private property, it would take some, either takings or some agreement, friendly takings, I would hope. But it might be, it would be a much better option that might not cost us as much money as the road.
I like the option, I just want to be sure it has safe access.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel that we've given enough direction for the consultant?
One other clarification, if I may.
Sure.
So we're talking 3 sites at the high school and 1 at the school administration building.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the only site that we previously were interested in was the standalone building at the administration building. We just want to figure out what that cost would be. Just because I know the reuse of the administration building was going to be enough of a cost
Yeah, the
increase.
joint use, I think this board walked away from.
Right.
So,
But I just wanted
standalone.
to see what the actual cost advantage to the administration building site would be before we dismiss it completely.
Got it. I do have one other question in the workup that you got from Heather and I. Question as to whether the board, is there any dialogue or any direction you want to give on the size of the facility? Right now, we're talking 20,000 square feet on the building.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that we've always considered the possibility of phasing so I would think you'd at least want to be sure that if town meeting, for example, decided on a less than 20,000 square foot building for the moment, then perhaps there would still be expansion possibilities if the town's population that we're using that facility were to grow in the future. I mean, we want something that's going to last for the next 50 years. So I would at least want to be sure that the area would have some flexibility.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah.
think you've crossed the threshold on all of the sites as part of the feasibility study that they all will support a 20,000 square foot building.
Right.
So you've got that information.
Great.
The question is, in terms of moving the site feasibility forward and the cost ranges for a town meeting discussion, are you looking at the 20,000 square foot or something less?
Yeah, I would hope that maybe we could ask the question, what do we think are sort of the cost thresholds that we'd like to kind of stay within?
Right.
And then, if it's necessary, to think in terms of a second building phase, to make sure that that's incorporated into the site plan and to the structural elements of a building. If they're going to add an addition on it, or are they going to add something that's basically a hollow shell? But I would hope that we could kind of pick some targets. I don't know, 10 million kind of comes up in my mind as being sort of, it probably, the proposal they come back with ought to be in the $10 million range. Because I keep having the question in my mind, all right, well, if we move forward to this next April town meeting, and it goes before the voters in May, how much is it going to raise the income tax rate, So I don't have a number for that yet.
You mean property tax?
I mean, property tax.
Yep.
How much of an increase in the property tax is it going to be? Because a lot of people are going to look at that when they make the decision as to whether they're going to support a referendum or not. And so I would hope that we're looking at that and thinking about it and saying, right, do we think this is what people want in this town, or is worth the cost that they're going to have to pay in terms of increased real estate taxes?
If we keep the tabbing right, it's within the window that will not increase. It just
Oh, I
will
want to
not
hear
decrease.
that, but you've got some major construction projects going on, and I don't know whether that window's going to extend out that far or not. So
I guess-
let's find out.
I don't want to give them the dollar figure. I'd rather say, here's what the size we want, and if the
Okay.
size is too much, say, well, and that's where I guess if I were going to say a choice, option 2 gives us a ballpark. If it's too much, we say, okay, forget the extra 5,000, we're going down to 15. If we are, say, heck, actually, that seems reasonable, could we go bigger now because we need it, once we see that dollar figure? But I figure if we tell them 10 million, that's what we're going to get.
Okay.
They're going to come say, yep, this is exactly, wow,
Right.
cost 10.5 million, how did you know? And they will fill the bill no matter,
But on the other hand, I don't want them to come back with a Taj Mahal,
No,
right? that's just ridiculous. We just wasted our money on these architects and OPMs, right, of coming up with something that the town will not find tolerable.
Well, I'm just talking about what we're asking the site analysis in the next 4 weeks to come with.
Yeah.
I think beyond that, it may be, once we see that dollar figure, we're gonna say, we're gonna tell the building committee that we're gonna appoint, here's your maximum dollar figure, go with it and come up with it. But I don't think that's the question we're having right now.
So, do I understand correctly that, I mean, we've had through the comprehensive analysis that the committee has done earlier, whatever size that was that 20,000 square feet?
The needs assessment that was done.
Right.
Indicated 20,000 square feet.
So, and those are the numbers that we've used up to date, so I think we should stick with that for this initial analysis so that we have even comparison going forward.
So that what you're looking at in terms of the ranges, that is what was given to you in December of 2015. It sounds to me like you're saying stick with what was used before.
That's what I'm saying, consistency, so we can have a continuous comparison, at least at this initial stage.
So we wouldn't be talking phasing, just a single square footage.
Right, for now.
Well, this
If you
is,
wanna be
it's 3 different
consistent-
options.
If you wanted to be consistent, these were the options that were presented in
Yeah,
December.
one was 15,000, one was 15,000 plus a 5,000 shell, and one was 15,000. And what cost would it be to add 5,000 later on?
I think that's a reasonable way to do it.
These 3 options.
Those 3 options, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on that point? All right, seasonal license renewals. We have the all alcohol restaurant, common victual license, entertainment license, and Sunday entertainment from Falmouth Pier 37. For the applicant, you're going to tell us all the wonderful stories that didn't happen this year, right?
Yes, Connor McLaughlin, General Manager, Boathouse Restaurant. Just looking for a renewal of our licenses, common victual, liquor, and entertainment.
Okay, and how did things go this year?
We had a wonderful year, actually. They came by, did inspections, nothing was out of the ordinary, and said that we did a great job controlling the crowds, and they were, as far as I know, the fire and the police were happy with what we were coming up with as far as management.
I did stop by there in, I think, May or June of last year, and was really impressed with the new construction and how the layout was so much better than what you had to deal with before.
Thank you very
And I
much.
think you even took steps a little bit further than had been proposed, because it became obvious that it would work even better to do it that way.
And we're continuing to do that this year as well, trying our best.
I just have a question, Connor.
Yes,
Is your
Ms.
current license to midnight or to 1 a.m.?
It's till, we stopped serving at 12:45, that's been the last 6, 7,
12:45.
yeah, but it's
Because
been
this
1
says,
AM license.
this one says 1 a.m.
I believe the license is a 1 AM license, but we stopped serving at 12:45. I'm not,
Oh, okay.
I'm just going for a renewal of whatever we had last year. I apologize if that was,
Okay. No, I just wanted to be clear
if it's
that it wasn't
12:45, we
like
can amend that.
midnight and then you were asking for an hour extension.
Oh, no, it's always been 12:45, which is the same as every other restaurant in town, I believe, that operates an entertainment venue.
So this is wrong.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I wanted to ask about the entertainment portion of this, though,
Yes, sir.
because it seems to me that 1 o'clock on 12:45 on a Sunday night, when people are trying to go to bed, get up early the
Actually, I
next
believe
morning.
that it's limited to midnight on a Sunday, correct?
Yeah, midnight, but even that's pretty late when people are trying to get to bed and get up at an early hour to go do a job.
No.
I'm just concerned about the community, and, you've got residential on one side, on the Scranton Avenue side, and it seems like pretty late to have loud music. This is all inside your facility?
Yes.
So none of this is outside, right?
No.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing was, I do recall that we had some police reports on incidents that occurred outside your restaurant, not inside. But I just wonder whether it doesn't make sense to cut the entertainment off a little bit earlier, and then people start to wind down, and you guys are worried about whether you're serving alcohol to somebody that's already intoxicated. So I'm just kind of uncomfortable with running the entertainment that late.
So on Sunday evenings, we typically haven't had entertainment. We leave it open for the ability to do road race. 4th of July this year is on a Monday, as you pointed out earlier with the Tuesday, the bus that's coming in on the 5th. That is what we kind of look for those Sundays for, but it's not something that we typically run every Sunday. It's not really worth it, to be honest with you. People are done on Sunday. They've had their fill after Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'd be hesitant to, I'm only going for what's allowed by law, and those are the only events that I would be considering having entertainment anyways. I wouldn't be running it as a weekly program.
I would be hesitant to even look at curtailing the current license that you've already been operating under, particularly since there aren't any complaints about it.
We haven't had any issues.
And it seems like there have been only improvements in terms of the difficulties that you've had, and in fact, you've made quite extensive investment in all of those improvements, and I know that the chair mentioned he's seen it himself. I also was there once last year, and I thought it really operated in a much improved fashion, so I wouldn't want to curtail. I do see that you said you wanted the same license as last year. It's indicated to us that you might be looking for an increase of 15 minutes. I really don't see that you need that.
No,
in fact, that's what you're saying, so I wouldn't be in favor of that increase. But I certainly wouldn't be in favor of a curtailment either.
Yes, and I apologize for that clarifier. I was going off of a round number.
So you're asking for the same license that you've
Correct.
been operating under, just to...
For the last 6 years, correct.
Yes. Okay.
I don't want to put this in the license, but I would ask that you continue to be cognizant of the effect of opening that big sliding door about how the noise can go out that way. I think that from what we heard this year, there weren't any complaints about it, but just to continue to be aware. You open that up,
Yep.
the noise just goes right out.
We'll be very respectful of our neighbors, and we'll make sure that we address any concerns as they come from the rest.
Okay.
I would move approval to extend again the current license.
For all alcohol, common victual, entertainment, and center entertainment?
Correct.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? We also have the inn holder's license for Inn on the Sound,
Keep up the good work.
313 Grand Avenue. Now that Howard's here, should we we should grant him his license. And the Woods Hole Passage Bed and Breakfast, 186 Woods Hole Road.
I move approval on both.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the second-hand dealer's license, Cash Point at 348 East Falmouth Highway, Falmouth Stamp and Coin, 11 Town Hall Square, and Harmony Hut Hi-Fi Repair at 105 Spring Bars Road.
Move approval on all three.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Individual selectmen's report.
It is.
Mr. Patterson?
I guess it's not as late as normal. I only have one meeting that I managed to get to since our last meeting, and that was the Affordable Housing Committee. And they were, of course, very pleased that the town meeting voted to move forward with the Spring Bars Road affordable community housing parcel and see how it goes. They were also very pleased to see that we were advocating for a housing coordinator and then the interim consulting position before this would come up next fall. So positive comments from them in that regard. You probably, like me, just got the April issue of the Beacon, which is the Massachusetts Municipal Association's newsletter, and there is an article in here about a special Senate Committee on Housing, which was convened by Senate President Stanley Rosenberg, but they quote some brief statistics that I thought are very helpful in grounding us. It says, in Massachusetts, the committee noted, 16% of households spend more than half of their income on housing. In Greater Boston, more than half of residents pay more than 30% of their total income on housing. So those are the kinds of issues that we're facing, and we're hoping that projects like the Spring Bars Road project can help families that, should have the right to live and enjoy this community, have a chance to do that. So that's it. Thanks.
Anything else? Mr. Suso?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, I had advised that with the assistance of the Energy Committee and others, we'd received equipment to install an electric vehicle charging station, and I had provided some information on that location. It'd be a single location on the park, fronting on the park portion of Marine Park, actually where the farmer's market is, and would ask for the board's concurrence in allowing that single parking space installation to go forward.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We concur.
Thank you.
And I also want to commend the committee. They've been working on this for a very long time, and I think a lot of people appreciate having that access.
Well said. I also want to thank members of the board for your leadership, support, and participation in the very gratifying results evidenced from the April town meeting just completed. I know we've touched on that. We do look forward to implementing the several important and timely initiatives included in both the annual and the special town meetings. And again, my thanks to all the members of the board for your insightful annual evaluation comments, which you provided to me. Very constructive and so much appreciated. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
I would anticipate that we will be having an executive session before our next meeting, since the Zoning Board of Appeals very well may have a final decision to us about the Window 1 special permit. They are meeting this Thursday at 5:30 to discuss and review their draft decision. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.